We covered Punisher 1989. Now it's time for Punisher 2004. This movie introduced me to the character. It's a personal, nostalgic favorite of mine, and the extended cut is nearly 20 minutes longer than the original, with a majority of the new scenes featuring the character of Jimmy Weeks, Frank Castle's best friend. On April 2nd, I had the honor of interviewing the actor who played Jimmy Weeks, A. Russell Andrews, the star of the extended cut. We discussed the time on his film and him getting to reprise his role in a special animated intro that you can see, especially for the extended cut DVD. After the interview, stick around as Alex and our guest Ian Miller will be joining me to discuss this cut and why it improves on the original. This is Punisher Stuff You Should Know. Welcome, everyone, to the CineFile screening of The Punisher Extended Cut. I'm Ben Wan, and this is Superhero Stuff You Should Know. We're a podcast that is teamed up with CineFile to basically screen for you guys alternate cuts of comic book movies. And the latest, a couple months ago, we did The Punisher 89. Now we're doing The Punisher 2004 extended cut. Who has not seen this extended cut, who's only seen the theatrical version? Wow. So pretty much everybody in this room. Wow. You guys have no idea how big of a role this gentleman has in this movie, how key of a role he has in this movie. So tonight, I had this as my request, as this is the next movie we're going to screen, and for this, I want the gentleman next to me to be the guest because he is the star, really, of this extended cut. A majority of the scenes in this movie that are added back in are his scenes in it. So please welcome actor A. Russell Andrews.
Thank you, my friend. Thank you very much, and welcome to friends and family, right? And everyone new. I hope that it is as interesting to see as it was to do, right? So with that.
Thank you. So let's just start from the beginning then, yes. How you came to be involved with this movie.
Pam Dixon. She was the casting director. I was at William Morris at the time, and so we had some people that were associated with production, what have you. It was an actual open call casting, and I went in, and after the first audition, I was called back to Pam's office. We talked about it. There was some little caveats or whatever that she wanted me to know. Later, I met Jonathan Hensley, which was a really interesting thing. He's an interesting guy. Yeah, very broad, very deep, but so internal. But he had me come out to his house. He and his wife, producer, Gillian Hurd, right? They had just bought this spot out in Pasadena, some sprawling thing. So we go out and, there are boxes everywhere. It's a giant house. But he wanted to tell me one particular thing that I did not do in the audition. And it was, I have to tell them if I say
You have to tell, well, I think we should. Really. So, Jimmy Weeks, your character, plays a very key role in the origin of the Punisher, the reason why his family is killed. It's the best way that I can probably give some.
Yes. And, oh my God.
I say we just go into. We have the opportunity to have a Russell Andrews here. If you really don't want to be spoiled by it, this is being recorded. We are putting this on the podcast, so if you want to plug your ears, then you can. But I do want to take the opportunity, right? Since I have you here, rather than be like, we don't want to spoil it too much.
Okay. Well, there was a scene that afterwards, Jimmy isn't here anymore, right? And. Jonathan wanted to explain to me the process. And, Jonathan, what are you going to say about that particular thing? But his brother committed suicide.
Oh,
right?
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy, right? But it was something he wanted to tell me. So he asked me to go to this room library, leather chairs, the whole nine. And he wanted to explain to me that people who, and I don't want this to be non-movie talk, but people who make those decisions, they're not instant. They've made them already. It's about a time. And he was saying how his brother, they were at home, I think it was Thanksgiving, and they were all sitting at the table, things going on, conversation, passing potatoes. He reaches under the table and bam, that was it. He wanted me to know that, and forgive me for that darkening the moment, but he wanted me to know that because he said in the other room at the table is Gail's there, Avi Arad is there, who I did not know at the time, right? And some other people from Artisan, which is one of the producers, and they just want to see you do the scene. And I said, well, damn, okay. He said, but listen, I need you to know it's not, I want to give my, it's not that. It's just, and I said, oh, well, damn. He said, but don't stress. Don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. They just want to see you do it. In my mind, 20 some odd years ago, yeah, perfect. I have all this training in theater or whatever, so I'm going to get the job if I can, if I can convince people that I'm going out. And obviously it worked, got the gig. 2 weeks, 3 weeks later, I'm in Tampa, with the crew doing the film. And it was exciting. It was really exciting. The first person I meet when I get to the hotel, first of all, it was humid as hell in Tampa. First person I meet who was waiting on me in the lobby of the hotel was John. Yeah, he was right there, and I didn't know who the hell he was because he didn't have the hairpiece on.
Sister Travolta, yeah.
He's still, come on, John, he's still a star. But when I realized it, it was one of those moments where this very huge, unassuming, humble star is standing there welcoming someone into a film, and they had been there shooting already. So we talked and greeted me, welcome, all those nice things. And I was kind of numb because I've done some things, but I still respect the art, the craft, and I'm still struck when I see actual stars, right? Or actual people that are stars that are as normal and humble as all of us. He is the absolute nicest man I've ever met in this business at that level. He's just a good guy, and he made it easy. And we had a couple of scenes, of course, and one big moment that I do remember with John was, I say John respectfully, we're not friends. I've only seen him maybe 2 or 3 times afterwards, but I feel comfortable with that, was the fact that there's a particular scene in the film in the casino when everybody, and he elected to stay for my close-ups. Yeah, he said, no, we're staying because, you have to tell the story. You're the story, we're in it, we're staying. So he and Will Patton decided to just stay. Stay in the eye line, and whatever time it took, it didn't take a while. I'm not that horrible. But we were able to get it. I was so appreciative of it. And the other scenes that I did with him were the same way. He decided we're staying. No, this is what we do. And man, the big dog, they usually walk out the room. I've done mine, I'm out. Dude stayed the whole time. It just lets me know that his light or his platform stardom, if you will, it comes with having paid dues and respecting the journey. And I've never forgotten that, not at all.
Awesome. Yeah. Now, I was going to ask about your experiences with Travolta on that, so that does answer that. I was
Hmm.
also curious about the fact that your character has this background in terms of the military, FBI, gambling, addictions. Were some of those things a part of your research into this role, or was it mainly coming down to the page? Because this is a character who's not in the comic books, is very much just a creation of Jonathan Hensley's.
The I would say the discipline of the military part was actually for the beginning, the animated version.
Mm.
Now, prior to my career beginning years and years ago, I worked at a prison in Texas, actually a couple of them. And it was very regimented, 3:30 in the morning, shave, polish shoes, all that. And I did different jobs in that. That had actually nothing to do with the film as much as I could only reflect on the discipline of it, the hierarchy of command. Um, but when we went into what ended up doing with the artwork, when we dressed in the fatigues and everything for that, it was like serious military. They wanted that, and we did the actions. We took the photos. We had to come back and do some ADR, but they set up this whole thing that was kind of, if I'm remembering correctly, green screen, right? In the studio, we had the fatigues and everything, and there were a few people there who had the experience, and I felt very green because again, my experience with that kind of discipline was in another world, right? But theirs was military, and we got it done. I had no idea when we started shooting that would be done. I had no idea. It was really green. I had no idea, but I was so fascinated by the process. That was I think, my second time with green screen. So it was a pleasure to do. And Thomas Jane was, he committed. I mean, committed. Inside, outside, he committed. So he was Johnny's soldier. He was Frank Castle the whole time. Um, but it worked out, and I really liked the way it did and how it looked, and I hope everyone else does.
Yeah, we will get to see that tonight. So, as part of this extended cut release, there is a prologue. Just to kind of give them the intro on that.
Oh,
There's
absolutely.
there's a prologue that is all animated, and it's done by the Punisher cover extraordinaire Tim Bradstreet, who also renders both Thomas Jane and Russell in this as their characters as Frank and Jimmy in Kuwait in this prologue that they did not have the budget to shoot, so instead they did the process of what Russell just described of being photographed and kind of being rendered in the sort of black and white animated style that you'll end up seeing in the intro. So we'll actually see that first before the movie starts, and it kind of it's the prologue that I believe Jonathan wanted to have in the beginning to kind of show the origins of your friendship, right?
Yeah, what's interesting about the friendship is that, well, first of all, when I got there, Thomas was not, he's a good dude, first of all, but he was very standoffish, and he wanted it that way. He came into the project weeks before, maybe month and a half before. He was training with Navy SEALs. He chopped up, cut up, did the whole thing, the one meal a day and all that. And he looked great. And he's a good actor as well. But Pam said to me, she said, be prepared because do you know Tom? I said, no, I don't. She said, well, if you did, he's different now. because he's a whole different cat. He was very Navy SEAL, very committed, and our friendship was always at a distance during the film, right? Because I mean, respectfully, that guy plays character the whole time. He was Frank Castle. But there was a time when he had to separate himself from Jimmy Weeks, right? And there was the whole thing of being kind of suspicious and leery and whatever, because, and this is not giving anything away, the film begins with our friendship, him leaving, the watch, the whole nine, right? And it was really simple. And Thomas Jane he can be a little dry sometimes. And again, I'd never met him, so I didn't know which guy he was, whether the guy Pam was talking about or the guy that I'm meeting. And he, I'll say this. He had been there and working so long and so committed to what he was doing that he never left Frank Castle. Every time I saw him, on set, hotel, whatever. Now, it's not overboard, but he was never the nice guy I met years after, right? He was just committed to the project. I had no idea that, there were budget issues because, again, Jonathan wanted a lot. He wanted, and I see why. And I also understand why he fought, knowing that this part may be shaved, if you will, a bit. He knew that coming in, but he fought to get it done. And, thus the director's cut. But the whole experience was not business as usual, because there's this whole thing of trying to get it right because of the previous Punishers and the whole thing about Jimmy Weeks and what they wanted to do with the character. They wanted him a little younger. They wanted the friendship a little deeper, right? And I won't say any more because I don't want to give away for those who haven't seen it. But it was really good. It was a great experience for me. I learned a lot, got a lot from it. But Thomas would not sign on for the second. He just wouldn't. They didn't like the way the story was being done, even though Jonathan was going to have a hand in writing it. It was, they were just trying to make it simpler. And Jonathan, he's written some other very large, he wanted more, and I had no voice because I wasn't going to be there. So,
You had it easy.
Oh, man, it was a wrap. Yeah.
You were mentioning, in terms of the friendship being deeper, your character being younger. This is in reference to the previous Punisher version with Louis Gossett Jr. Because a couple months ago we did screen the 1989 Punisher, where Louis Gossett Jr. plays Frank Castle's best friend from before his family's killed, and it's a pretty straightforward cop role. He's a good guy the entire time. Very different from a more tragic, morally gray character like yours. So did that ever factor in terms of, did they ever have you watch that other version?
They mentioned, but never asked me to watch. I didn't want to watch. And I'll be honest with you, my brother was a big comic book fan. I was not. I had no idea who the Punisher was. The character, anything. I had no idea. When I got the role, then I did the homework. And I realized that Marvel was in the artisan relationship was beginning. And this would be a launching pad for something different. They had the 89, I think, Lundgren and what have you, but they wanted to make a better project, right? And try to make it a little bit more realistic and not so fantastic. Well, I mean, you can judge, by watching whatever you feel about it. But I was lucky that Jonathan, there's this cliche that we have about actors, director. Jonathan loved theater, and he loved theater actors. I think, as much as anything, that was a part of what, because I'm a theater guy, and I think that was a part of how it was done. Um, I don't know, and forgive me for getting off track. I don't know what his ultimate plan was, but the idea that he would have John, who, not John, forgive me, Thomas, he had him, and he was committed until the scripts started coming in, and the story did not satisfy where Thomas Jane and Jonathan Hensley wanted to go.
Talking about the sequel? Or
Yes.
Okay.
No. This one, he was good with this. He had his story. But, it was already, 2:30, 2:40, whatever. And then after the cut, so imagine, they were looking at a 3-hour film. But, like sometimes the longer versions are the best ones. And not so much for this film, but because of the continuity of story and flow. And I remember going into ADR, right, for the cut, because there were some things he was saying, and he didn't owe me, but he was very apologetic. He said, I know the project was this, it screened, it did well, but I want to do this. I said I was going to do it, and I'm very glad that you came in to be a part of it. He said, I always wanted this, and when this is released, you'll see the version. And I already knew we shot it. I'd already seen the screening. It was already out. I won't say I was disappointed, but I do know that the cuts that you will see make it all make sense. Because it feels like there's a gap, as it would be with any project that loses, 30 minutes, right? So yeah, man, I can go on and on about that. It's unfair. But yeah, I'm trying to be selective because there were no negative moments, but there was tension, and there were some things spoken up afterwards that respectfully I'm not at liberty to speak about.
Sure. But I mean, it must have been rewarding to find out, right, that your scenes are going to edit back in, separate release, for us all to be able to see.
Absolutely, and I got mine. Jonathan sent mine, and I've kept it. I still have it, somewhere. And to see the animated, the version that Tim Bradstreet did is incredible. And it did what it did in the theaters. It made, for what it's worth, its money back. You know how hard that is. And I see people now. I've seen people in grocery stores. I was in traffic on the 405. This guy looks over and he blows a horn, Jimmy Wiggs. I said, oh my God, man. Driving toward the valley on the 405, and the guy says Jimmy Weeks. That could be a lot of things. But yeah, it's been good. It's been rewarding. I'm surprised after all these years that there's still a following like it is. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Any last behind the scenes stories before I kick it over to the audience for any questions today?
Boy, if you get your hands on the outtakes, I had never had on military gear, and we had to run over this little bridge and jump down without guns. And when I say face plant, oh my God, and it made the blooper reel. They kept it. I was top heavy, but all that military gear, And I'm coming, I'm leading the guys. It's supposed to be this serious military. I come over the bridge and bam, face down. Everybody died, and I cannot tell you, how embarrassing that was to be like this, military guy would come in there. You'll see the scene and you'll laugh because you'll know, okay, that was a third take, and because it was silly, but it was fun, man. But it was intense because Thomas was intense. But John lightened everything. And not because his character was so dark, but John, the dude, there's like Sidney Poitier cool, right?
Different type of cool.
He's just easy. The cat's easy, man. And he made it easy. He made the set easy. You knew when he was there. Most of my stuff was just with him and Thomas. I didn't work too much with the other guys. Though I used to work out with the guy who played Travolta's son, Campanella.
Yeah, James.
Oh my God, he's a good dude. We used to work out the Hollywood. Why? Good cat. But no, man, it was just an easy set, easy, Tampa, humid, and I went back and forth a couple of times. My wife at the time was pregnant, or we were, I think is the proper way to say that, with our second child. So I wasn't sure I was going to get back. And I had spoken to John off camera, say, yeah, man, wife was pregnant back in Los Angeles, and I don't know if I'm going to be off. The baby's due a certain time. And he said, well, I have a plane. And I said, really? He said, yeah, I have a plane. It just so happened, though, my days off, so we didn't have to rush. And I had it built in the contract that when I had to go, I had to go. But he said, in the emergency, I have a plane. And there you go. All right.
That's amazing. All right, any questions from the audience? Now, because of the setup I have here, I will repeat the question just so that I have it recorded on here. So there'll be a little bit of a delay back and forth. But any questions from the audience? If not, then we can go ahead and be prepared for this movie. So we are about to watch the extended cut. It's going to start with this animated intro with the Tim Bradstreet stuff and the third take, as you said, of you in the military gear, and be on the lookout for, like, in the music. You'll hear these war drums that will come back later into the movie. You'll see the extended scenes in the rest of the cut with Russell's performance, and it is one of, like, this movie is one of those that when I was younger, it developed a fascination in me in terms of alternate cuts, subplots that were deleted, actors who were unfortunately deleted but got to come back to the movie in some way, like yourself. And so because of your story, because of all these things, it developed the fascination that led to me creating this podcast in some ways. And so in some ways, without your story and so many others of these types of alternate cuts, there might not ever be a Superhero Stuff You Should Know. So thank you.
Dude, yeah, well,
thank you very much.
Congrats and thank you at the same time. Yes.
So it's my honor to have you here, and let's give a hand for A. Russell Andrews.
Thank you, my friend.
All right.
Thank you.
Hey guys, if you want to hear more of us outside of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, you're in luck. Both Alex and I have shows and other work that we produce outside of this podcast. Alex, let's hear about your other podcasts.
All right, so obviously I know you guys are a fan of superheroes, so I'll start off with I Have Flashbacks, a Flash rewatch podcast where we cover every episode of the CW Flash show. Also, if you're a fan, I know you can see in the corner the Batman thing. We have Night of the Batman, where me and my wife and occasionally other guests cover everything Batman related. Ben was actually on the show, and we interviewed John Jackson Miller, and also we covered his book, Batman Resurrection. So definitely go check that out. And also, if you're more into like kind of a vague kind of movie-ish show, kind of like a vague like What Mean kind of vibe, then I have What Mean podcast, which is also great. That's just vague like movies, TV, music, just whatever I kind of feel like covering. That has made a comeback recently, so look forward to that. And if you're into just TV in general, and especially nostalgic TV, I would recommend Review More Girls. My wife and her cousin cover it, and that show heavily deals with family, the Gilmore Girls show, and they talk about their own personal, their personal family life, and also just how they relate to each other, kind of like the two main characters of that show. So definitely go check that out.
Awesome. Yes, I've been a guest on both Flashbacks and Night of the Batman. I have not watched enough Gilmore Girls to be part of Review More Girls, so I don't know if I'll be making an appearance on that one. But on Flashbacks and Night of the Batman, I've been there, and it's been fun. So definitely check those out. As for me, outside of this show, I'm both a voice actor and a writer. On the voice acting side, I'm currently voicing 3 different versions of Batman on YouTube. Yes, I'm the voice of Batman in the Arkham Tapes. That's an analog horror series produced by one of our collaborators, The Bat Feed, in which I play a Bruce Wayne who's injected himself with the powers of the different Rogues Gallery members, becoming this monstrous version of Batman that you see there. And I am also the voice of 2 other versions on Newverse Creative. That's one of our favorite channels. That's NEUVERSE. This is a channel that produces audio dramas and motion comics, where I've contributed my writing to episodes devoted to expanding the worlds of the different versions of Batman, not only adapting the movies, but also adapting unmade scripts, junior tie-in novels, or existing comics and just setting them into the movie continuity. So basically, it's the dramatized version of a lot of stuff that we cover on the show. I'm also the voice of both the Michael Keaton Batman and the Val Kilmer Batman in that. How did that happen? I have no idea, but somehow I landed it in there. Nobody's called me out as a fraud yet. So I adapted the original scripts for Batman Forever when they were produced in 2 audio dramas, one produced in the style of the Burtonverse with me as the Michael Keaton Batman, like you see here, titled Tim Burton's Batman 3, and the other in the style of the Schumacher film, of course, called Batman Forever, the Schumacher cut audio drama with me as the Val Kilmer Batman. So if you're a fan of our Batman coverage, you won't want to miss these. And if you'd like to check out my original stuff, I also self-published my own indie comics. So check out my indie comic series, Alter Ego. This is a mix of Batman No Man's Land with X-Men and The Departed. 5 families of supervillains have taken over the city, and our main character goes undercover as a henchman to eliminate them one by one. And this is now available on Amazon. I say now available. It's always been available on Amazon. That's really the only place you can get it, other than just off of me. So the 3 issues are available on Amazon. There'll be more. You can also get the variant cover of issue 1 done by Alex himself that we see in the middle right here. So this is cool. And that is my first indie series, and the other one is my manga, Musashi and Son. This is based on the real-life samurai Miyamoto Musashi, who wrote the Book of 5 Rings. If you've studied martial arts or any sort of Asian martial history, Miyamoto Musashi comes up a lot in the Book of 5 Rings. And this is the story of how he adopted a son. Think Samurai Batman and Robin in this. They go from village to village, hunting down the bandits that murdered the boy's father. Also available on Amazon, and the link to my Amazon author page is in the description that has all of these available in their different forms, both on Kindle and in print. You can also get merch for both my comics at my TeePublic, which has a link in the description. You occasionally see me wearing either an Alter Ego shirt or Musashi shirt in here, or a Superhero Stuff You Should Know shirt. If you want Superhero Stuff You Should Know merch, that's in here. On top of that, I have an animated movie coming out, directed by a friend of the podcast, Aaron Quinn. It is a faithful adaptation of the James O'Barr graphic novel, The Crow, that I co-wrote with Aaron, who will also be animating, and I will be the voice of the Crow. So that's our plugs. Check those out when you can. And welcome back, everyone. Joining me as usual is Alex. Clever name.
I couldn't think of anything. Sorry, guys.
There's a lot of quotable lines in this movie. We could probably give you one at some point. And then we have our returning guest. He is the host of Triple Threat Comics. He was behind the Batman Enigma fan comic and audio drama. He's currently co-writing some exciting Newverse media projects with me, as well as writing some of his own. We can tease those later. But welcome back, Ian Miller.
Hey everyone, Ben, Alex, thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no problem. I know that this was something last year. We made the announcement, hey, Alex is the new co-host of Superhero Stuff You Should Know, and we want to start covering some characters we haven't covered before, including Punisher. And I think around that time, that was when you requested to be here to talk about this version of the Punisher, this film, the 2004 one. So clearly,
Yeah.
as we kind of talked about offline before we started the recording, you are a fan of this one.
Yeah, absolutely. I just thought it was a solid action thriller. It was very well written at the time. Um, the theatrical cut I actually liked. It wasn't until the extended cut I was like, okay, I'm liking this a bit more because we get more of the backstory for
Mhm.
certain characters.
Yeah, yeah. They do have that more fleshed out intro of the Saints in the beginning, but most of it, of course,
Yeah.
is on Jimmy Weeks, whom we just did the interview on. I know by the time of this recording, I haven't been able to share that interview with you guys yet, so I'll kind of just reiterate some of the stuff that came up during that interview with Russell. But it sounds like one of the things that Russell had a lot of fun with was doing that sort of prequel, like prologue opening, that animated one that also had some Tim Bradstreet stuff. And then for those who have the DVD of it, it also comes with a little booklet full of those Tim Bradstreet illustrations.
Beautiful illustrations, man.
Yeah.
They looked really good.
Yeah. So that was a really cool sequence. I also really appreciate the way that they carry over the score, because I brought this up in the CineFile event, that like if you listen for it, they play like these war drums that happen once Frank like strips off his gear and starts going at it with everybody, and that specific cue doesn't come back until later on in the movie, where he charges into the room after he blows up the party. So it's just, that's, he's back into the war, baby. That's what it, that's what it signals. So yeah, we're gonna go over kind of what's specifically different in this extended cut, and then we'll sort of circle back and go into the comic book influences on this movie. Sound good?
This will be kind of an experience for me too, because I don't know if Ben told you, Ian, but I
haven't,
didn't. I got this through. I watched this through let's just say some other means, and so so the site I used had like Russian.
Sure, you want to reveal this?
Yeah, sure. Had like Russian, like not dubbing over, but like someone translating over the actual English dialogue, so you could hear the English dialogue. But like the amount of times I heard like the dude go like "niet" like every 5 seconds, and just other stuff, it was kind of like I was watching like an art movie or something. Like I was looking, I was like, I can still follow the plot. Like it's like the action movie and everything. Like I can understand most of the words, and the visuals are, I guess, the biggest compliment. The visuals carry the movie. So I was like, hey,
especially the way you had to see it. Yeah.
I was like, I was following this. I was like, oh man, like I knew I was in trouble when it started, and it started like saying like Marvel, it's or like but in Russian, like saying Marvel Entertainment. And I was like, this is
like shit.
Oh man, yeah, I don't have time to. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was pretty amazing. Honestly,
sounds like it. Well, this is a rare find. Honestly, this was first released in 2006, about 2 years after the release of the initial movie, and it kind of feels like a rare thing. Like the whole Daredevil director's cut was a similar situation where you had the original cut released on DVD first, and then almost like a quieter release of this director's extended cut that came out that came out after. This one, you can kind of tell that stuff is re-edited back in a little bit more. Like in the Daredevil one, things feel a little bit more seamless because of the original cut. Whereas this one, you can kind of tell, or feels like stuff was edited back in, because you can see the change in the video. Like the moment switch from like the added scene to the existing scene in the theatrical. So it felt like this was done a little bit after the fact.
Yeah. I have the original DVD. I have like that and like a combo pack. Like it's like Punisher and like a few other like those type of action movies though. But yeah. You think this was done for like DVD sales or something? Like I know that was a thing back then. Like maybe a director's cut was done to like they used to do the like Spider-Man's the biggest thing I think of, but
Mhm.
like the 2-disc like set, do you think they maybe did like a director's cut to try to drive up some DVD sales possibly?
For sure, I think because
Yeah.
like they did this like to bring in Bradstreet for this specifically to do this
Mhm.
intro with the military. I mean, that probably wasn't cheap to bring on Tom
No.
Jane again
Yeah.
to do this,
Yeah.
and then have
He'd do it
Bradstreet
though.
do
I
it.
mean,
Yeah,
he's in a fan film, so you know, clearly he loves the character.
yeah, that's true. That's true. So let's go into this animated opening. So like I described in the interview with Russell, this was the original opening for the movie in which it's Frank Castle. Because this is now set in 2004, we can't say that he's a Vietnam vet. So they have him in
Yeah.
the Gulf War, and it's set in 1991, which Ian brought up to me beforehand was somewhat of an important year for Punisher.
Yeah, absolutely. They had a great run of the Punisher at the time, especially with War Journal, and that was just selling like hotcakes. So yeah, it makes sense, canon wise, why we're saying it this particular story in Desert Storm, because again,
Mhm.
we're in 2004.
Yeah.
But for those who are in the know and read the comics, 91 was a very important year
Mhm.
for this character.
Nice. So I thought that was a cool little Easter egg type of thing that Ian told me. And in this, a lot of it, the reasons why this intro is important, I think, is partially to show where Frank's background is from, where his skills come in, because you're kind of told it a little bit later on, but you never really get to see him in action until like the attack on the family. Before that, he's pretending to be this Russian dude in the opening, doesn't quite like show off his specific Punisher skills on that. And then, of course, the other aspect, the bigger reason is to show off Jimmy Weeks' saving his life. And there's the Punisher calling right now to let us know about his background. But yeah, the Jimmy saving him does set up their bond, and it's rendered by Tim Bradstreet, the Punisher cover extraordinaire, and which is like an incredible get, for this time.
Yeah.
But yeah, unfortunately, the budget didn't allow them to shoot this for real, and so I think they decided, hey,
That's
we got
still
this.
really. It looks like stills. That's honestly so
Right?
impressive.
Yeah.
It does.
On the DVD, you get to see sort of a little bit of the behind the scenes where they're in front of the green screen, and then Russell kind of described this in the interview. But a lot of the art is basically animating or tracing over these stills that they did,
Like rotoscoping, kind of, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
And so Tom and Russell are in costume in front of the green screen. At one point, Russell talked about like there's a couple takes where he like outtakes of him kind of making a fool of himself on things, and it's not until like the third take where you get to see that made it into the thing. But they did bring in Tom Jane and Russell Andrews to do this, as well as do the voiceover, of course, that you hear over that animated intro. So that combination is great. And then on the DVD, you have the option of watching this seamlessly, like basically plays this right before the logos come up and the rest of the movie. So it's a nice, smooth way to get it all at once.
Nice.
So this intro shows basically Frank going into action, taking out terrorists and saving two of them to be prisoners. However, his commanding officer plans to shoot them down and kill them and execute them. And Frank actually stops him, claiming that that's murder. And I thought this was interesting, considering that I think it's deliberately made to contrast what he's going to become of the Punisher. Obviously, as we get further into Punisher comics, especially with Punisher Max and Garth Ennis, we start going a little bit more into how Frank kind of always was this killing machine. So it's it's obviously very different. It's not a little different; it's the opposite, actually.
Well, yeah, I kind of argue that this one, and I guess it's a credit to the actor.
Mhm.
This Punisher is almost like too likable. Where like you look at him, where he's just like so charismatic, and so just like where you're like, well, man, like you just like you go talk to that girl that really wants to be with you, and these like roommates. Yeah, it's like you just be with these roommates and everything, and your life would be figured out. I think the only thing they kind of lean into is like all of his like chronic drinking all the time is maybe part of the reason why he's able to psych himself out. Basically, it's how he deals with his like grief though too. But maybe it's part of like how he's able to get into that headspace of like, killing and stuff. It's not like outwardly said, but I could see that kind of being a way that he does that, because this one's the most like kind of human.
Yeah.
I'd argue, like out of all
I
the
agree.
Punishers.
I agree. Yeah, like we were talking about in '89, how that's one of the biggest demonstrations of like, because all these other ones, starting with Tom Jane onwards, I think kind of just like, oh, like look, he's a human being too, like that type of thing. And then with Lundgren, he just goes further and further, and to the point where he threatens a kid at the end of the '89 movie. So like, it's the main one to show how far gone he is, as opposed to, I think, Tom Jane. You do what, like, there's a level of relatability or feeling like, well, if that were me, right, I'd want to do the same thing. So yeah, it doesn't quite get to the extreme levels that you would get with the Punisher Max comics or what we'd end up seeing later on. But it is.
Oh, I can't wait for Warzone, man. I've never seen it. I'm excited to see that.
So it is different, but it's also kind of fits this specific version of what they were trying to do, and you can kind of see that there's not really a lot of hints about Frank having much of a Punisher mentality until after his family is killed in this specific version, as opposed to what we would get later on in the Ennis stuff. If anything, we'll talk about this in the Patreon, but there's a prequel comic that came with the I think it came with the regular DVD release. I don't think it came with the extended.
It did.
Yeah.
I miss the physical media world that we used to live in.
I mean,
I know.
Yeah.
This is written by Garth Ennis too, and it's got a Bradstreet cover of. It's hard to see, but a Bradstreet cover of Tom Jane as the FBI agent version of Frank. But it's really the only story that's set in this continuity that shows that Frank had any sort of like homicidal, psychopathic tendencies before the movie. And then this intro clearly just kind of shows that he has some sense of like idealism or justice that's obviously going to get shattered to hell later on. But he doesn't want the commanding officer to kill these guys. And while they're just talking about that, one of the prisoners grabs the guy's grenade. Jimmy brings Frank to safety as the rest get blown up. And so that's how Jimmy saves his life. And presumably Jimmy then gets gifted a watch by Frank, which comes into play later. Let's see. We do then in the extended cut, we have a different introduction. So like the movie starts in the theatrical version, we kind of cut right to the deal with Bobby, Mickey, and quote unquote Otto Krieg. But the extended cut shows a different introduction to the Saints that, according to Jonathan Hensley, was to establish like who these people are and their standing in the Tampa community as kind of like, hey, like he's a mobster, but people kind of see him as an upstanding citizen, like that type of dynamic, which you kind of get a little bit later on in the theatrical one, but I get how like it's cemented a little bit more. And then the movie introduces the twin brothers, Bobby and John, both played by James Carpinello, and they may have been inspired by the brothers Eddie and Bobby in Welcome Back, Frank, since they're both mobster brothers. One of them is named Bobby. Their parent is the main villain of the story, though in Welcome Back, Frank, it's Ma Nucci, not Howard Saint, who's
definitely the one right there. Like you can see the two, the one with the ponytail, and then him, like similar, like similar look. Basically, I can definitely see that.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So that is that could have been an inspiration as well, because Welcome Back, Frank is one of the main inspirations for this version of the movie. One of my favorite Punisher comics, if not my favorite, for that. So this is the Bradstreet cover to that.
Steve Dillon's like illustrations, man.
Your
Sometimes I
favorite,
like them.
I know.
Yeah, but then other times I'm like, it's just they're hard to look at, man. Like I don't know, like it's just something about how he draws faces, man. Like I don't know, like you look at them and they just look like grimy looking. Like I don't know.
I mean, it fits this world though. Like if he's doing a Superman comic, I'd be like, ugh. But for this, I'm like,
it works in Preacher. I've read a little bit of Preacher, and for whatever reason, that doesn't bother me as much. But like with this, it's like I saw him. It's like I saw him draw the Hulk one time, and the Hulk had like same face, like some of the other
same faces,
illustrations that he does.
Yeah.
Yeah, he draws same face. Like that's
much.
the thing with him. Yeah.
Let's see. We see Bobby go off to his own deal, and he tells one of the bodyguards to stay, which is what leads to that same bodyguard, getting killed by Travolta later on. But yeah, this all kind of sets up who the Saints are as well as the brothers, because obviously in the theatrical cut we don't have the scene of the brothers together. It's well afterwards, after Bobby's killed, that we meet John in the theatrical version.
Yeah.
But yeah, both versions. Frank is undercover as Otto Krieg. Deal goes wrong. His friend Jimmy Weeks is the one who is there on the scene, throws him a retirement party afterwards. And in the extended cut, we sort of have an extended version of their goodbye, where Jimmy gives him his watch, or gives him a watch. So that kind of harkens back to the watch that Frank gave him and said, now we both have one. And then Frank warns him to stay out of the casino, which obviously plays a very big role later on. So that's kind of establishes a little bit more and more of that friendship between the two of them. Then later on, we see Jimmy again when Howard Saint talks to him in the morgue, asking who Otto Krieg is. And that's kind of like the second out of 3 scenes that we see Jimmy in the theatrical one. Like, that's it. Yeah. For him, he's just kind of like the FBI guy Frank knew in the theatrical version. But in this extended version, Saint finds out that Jimmy has a gambling problem and frequently goes to the casino run by the Toros, his sort of, the people he banks for. So in this extended sequence, Saint goes there so he can use leverage against Jimmy. And so when Jimmy loses money, he gets confronted by the Toros, who blackmail him with the knowledge that he took stolen money from the FBI vault to pay off his gambling debt. And from this, they bring in Howard Saint, who basically makes him give up who Frank is. And presumably later on, the file folder that they get at the funeral that has all the information and stuff. So this is why Jimmy is in the movie. This is a major, major thing added back in. The theatrical version does not explain how the Saints knew the castles were going to be there at all. So this does fill in a plot hole that is present in the theatrical version, but not in the original take. And so this also brings up what I was kind of talking about with Ian before we started, was how, the first Punisher movie in '89 with Louis Gossett Jr. has Jake Berkowitz, a character Alex and I have talked a lot about in that version.
This guy is no Jake Berkowitz.
He's no Jake Berkowitz. Yeah. Exactly. He's not. It starts off fine, right? It starts off with that, like, oh, he's an addict too. It's just gambling instead of alcohol, like in '89. But then it goes a completely different direction in terms
he
of...
He needed a pizza box. He would have been able to stop the Saints if he just had that pizza box.
He just had a pizza. He could have punched the Toro brothers. Yeah. But it's interesting from the interview. So, Alex, you haven't seen it yet, but in the interview, we also brought up how they did use Berkowitz as a jumping off point for this character in terms of they wanted a more complex, like, friendship, as well as more of a peer, like in terms of age range for the two characters in comparison to Frank and Jake in the 1989 version. And then obviously they went in their own direction in terms of how he plays a role in the story and what happens, since obviously Jake Berkowitz is pretty heroic and non-corrupted in the '89 version. Meanwhile, yeah, Jimmy is very much like in a movie where there's a lot of black and white in terms of, like, okay, the Saints are all bad. Even the wife who orders the killing of the entire family, like, they're all bad.
Even with John Travolta's character, he's like, "You sure?"
Yeah, I know, right.
She says that. It's like, all right.
Yeah, but that makes you okay later on when you see what happens to him. Although that's the same.
Punisher said enough. I'm shutting this podcast down.
But then
I'm talking about my plans too much.
Yeah, but Jimmy's very much in the shades of gray. Like, he's very much like, okay, you can kind of understand where he comes from a lot more, but also at the same time, what the role that he plays and what he did also leads to something horrific, right? So
yeah,
it's really interesting. It's a really interesting character add to this, where there are so many clear-cut villains who are like, oh, I want that person to pay, and then Jimmy, you're like, oh man, like you go back and forth a little bit on it, right? There are scenes later on with Jimmy where he's like trying to influence Frank to get out of town, and it's just like, okay, do you really care about Frank, or are you trying to save yourself? Like, it's you go back and forth a lot on that, and I think it's a really interesting role to have in a movie like this, where it's so typical in a revenge movie where you just want to make the villains more and more hateable so that it's more satisfying when they get their comeuppance. And then I also kind of wonder how much this might have influenced the Netflix show, since they also had Billy Russo and they made him Frank's best friend, who then betrays him and has some role in I forgot which role because there's like 60 different people involved in the death of the castles in that version.
Well, the Daredevil one, didn't he take out like most of them or something? Or is that like another plot line? Like, who is he taking out in the Daredevil season?
They're like mobsters who were also in on
Yeah.
it. Like,
Yeah.
It's the most intricate, like, like, you know, like assassination plot like ever with like his family.
I know, right? I think
That's
that
crazy.
like we talked about before, like the further we get, the more complex the death of the castles get in the different
The
variations.
family reunion in this one, that was the craziest
Right.
part. It's like I was telling my wife, I said, not only did like he kill his immediate family, he killed like his entire family. Like
Right.
no
Yeah.
one is spared.
There is something somewhat operatic and over the top about it, and I know we've kind of laughed about it, but as I was rewatching it too at the CineFile event, I was like, you know, this is a mass shooting. Like this is something like this is not. I mean, I know it kind of feels a little out there, but then as we're watching it, you're just like, like there is a level of horrific reality to this when looking at it, where I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's not so far fetched. Unfortunately, like maybe it's not. Like it does feel like a little more heightened than what was in the comic, but
yeah, especially when they kill Frank at that part where they are beating on him and then they shoot him and then they
blow him up.
They set the little oil thing on fire and then like that explodes. I'm like, damn, you think you could just like maybe shoot him a few times and kick him in the water, he'd probably be done.
Ironically, if they didn't try to blow him up on top of that, then they probably wouldn't have run into him later, because when you think about it, that's what got him into the water in the first place. But if they just let him to bleed out on the pier, like, I don't know, does Candelaria still find him later? I don't know. I just bled out. But yeah. Anyway, we know the role Jimmy plays in the Punisher origin. What's going to happen when he finds out Frank's still alive? We'll go into that.
Jimmy the Rat.
Yeah, Jimmy the Rat. Is that what we're going to call him?
Jimmy the Rat. Jimmy the Rat.
We'll find out what happens of Jimmy the Rat after the break. Hey guys, every month you get a new episode of Superhero Stuff You Should Know. Isn't that right, Alex?
That's right, Ben.
Yeah. But what if you could get more and support our show? So you can get an extra episode of our show per month if you support us on Patreon over at www.patreon.com/superherosysk, where you mainly get the $5 tier or the $10 tier. On the $5 tier, you'll get your name shouted out at the end of the episode from Alex himself in a Stickley voice, or maybe some other voice. We'll see what happens with this episode.
That's right, Ben.
What the hell is going on here?
What the hell is going on here?
You'll also
listen up, he's going to tell you.
We'll also have early access for you to all our videos and episodes if you're part of the $5 tier. You'll also get an exclusive episode each month for that tier. So an exclusive episode could be about a deeper dive into a novelization. We've covered the Alan Grant Jr. novelization for Batman Forever on there. We can also cover comics or alternate history of comics. We've done like the what if, in terms of what if Jason Todd had survived a death in the family. We have reviews. We sometimes cover news. We sometimes do deeper dive into smaller things. We had a whole 2.5-hour episode on each of the characters who showed up in the mural of the Hall of Justice in James Gunn's Superman. Though I gotta say, that's probably like our highest viewed Patreon episode, looking at the views there. Yeah. Or it's the same guy who just couldn't get enough of our talk about the Ghost of Flanders. You know who you are. So on the $10 monthly meetup, you'll get the meet and chat with Alex and me about all the latest superhero news, movies, TV shows. This is a virtual meetup in a Zoom setting that we usually have on like a Wednesday night.
It's not in person.
Sit down and talk about it. It's not in person. Sorry, we can't fly us all over there. You got to pay a lot more to Patreon to do that. And in some ways, the other perks you get on the $10 tier is you get to influence the show in some ways. We give you sometimes the options of a poll to vote on things like thumbnails or even what episodes to cover, and you also get the opportunity to submit questions for future guest interviews that are in the StreamYard setting that we're doing, where we have enough time to cover everything. So if this is an interview episode you're listening to or watching right now, there's probably some Patreon patrons who are able to submit some questions for this one. So check it out. And if you want to help us out, but you can't afford an ongoing monthly Patreon subscription, totally understand. That's okay too, because we're also selling collections of Patreon exclusive series. These are playlists of the $5 tier episodes curated by myself that are kind of sold individually. You don't have to sign up for a subscription. You can just have a one-time donation, and you can have it per each playlist that you want to get. We have playlists of deeper dives into things like the Tim Burton Batman films, of course, one of our specialties. We've got the movie magazines for Batman 89 and Batman Returns. We covered those. We also have an episode-by-episode deep dive into the Penguin show. If you love that show too, like I did.
How much does it cost, Ben? $100?
$100?
$200?
$100 per episode. No, it's not $100. It's more like $12 for the entire thing.
That's a bargain.
Yeah, for what used to be months and months of Patreon episodes, I put them all together for you just for $12 or so. So you can just donate $12 and get all that content and not have to worry about a monthly subscription. So check that out. And Alex says that it's a bargain, and he would know because he also, before he became co-host, used to be a fan who was a Patreon patron who was donating and was an audience who was part of those episodes. So
That's right.
Thank you, Alex. Now, what if you like the show, but you don't just want more content? You want something, tangible, something to hold in your hands, something that you could even wear. Well, you want some merch, and we have that too. As you can see, I'm wearing this Quick Change Bruce Wayne shirt resembling the Kenner action figure that was famous, that a lot of you guys, I know you're a Superhero Stuff You Should Know type audience. Either you're listening to it or you're somebody who's a good candidate for it if you recognize this shirt in the wild and ask, where did you get that shirt? So we can tell you, here's where you can get that shirt. This is an exclusive Superhero Stuff You Should Know styled shirt designed by a fan of the show, Cole Watkins. Very talented artist. He helped design this. This is a special Superhero Stuff You Should Know version. As you can see, the red bat says Superhero SYSK, but it does not mess with the overall Quick Change Bruce Wayne dynamic that you see here. This shirt not only resembles the action figure, but also has been worn by a Batman. Yes, it's been worn by former guest of the show, Carl Newman, who is the movement double for Michael Keaton in Batman 89 in the suit. And he brings the action figure to life here, looking like he's right outside Wayne Manor, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Just
Looks
chilling
pretty
out.
good.
Yeah. So, and then all the comments, of course, all want one. So if you want one of your own, go to our TeePublic link in the description. Go to the link there. You can scroll down. You'll see a variety of different options you can have. It doesn't just have to be this long sleeve shirt, though most people will go for that because it resembles the Michael Keaton action figure the most. But you can also get this design on t-shirts, stickers, mugs, and at the same time, you could also get the same stuff from the logo that Dan designed. Yes, our new logo from Dan of Superhero Stuff You Should Know. You can get that type of merch on TeePublic on the same types of things, either tank tops, hoodies, mugs, stickers, hats. They're all on there on the TeePublic, as well as merch for my comics, Alter Ego, and Musashi and Son. So any of these will help basically the show, and it's money that you pay that does not go into us spending it on batarangs or things like that, or this grappling gun and that type of stuff. It goes to paying Dan for the work he does for us. He's our producer, our editor. He does a lot for us on here, and the money goes to him as well as goes to the StreamYard subscription that we use that enables us to record in this way. So please get yourself some more of our show, get yourself some merch, and support us if you can.
And remember, you gotta have your Superhero Stuff You Should Know merch while you're watching Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
That's right. It's not a Superhero Stuff You Should Know episode without a Superhero Stuff You Should Know ball cap.
That's okay, they can get it next time, Ben.
We're back. We're going to go over the rest of the Jimmy Week subplot that was added back into the Punisher extended cut, where after the massacre of Frank's family, it pretty much goes into what we see in the theatrical version up until Frank shows up to basically reveal that he's still alive to Jimmy and the police chief. And in the extended cut, the scene is longer, where Frank brings up that he wants to know who gave him up. And so I thought that, it sort of reminds us that not only does Frank know, but we also know, we're sort of reminded of what Jimmy did earlier in the movie. Jimmy the Rat, as Alex calls him.
Yeah, Jimmy the Rat.
One thing that I thought was should be worth noting as somebody who also has the novelization, because I have like practically all the not like all the merch on this movie, but because before this extended cut,
There's a giant like
there's a giant wrap.
life-size poster like a cutout of Tom Jane Punisher somewhere in the background of that video.
Yeah. Before this extended cut, the main thing that I had of this subplot was the novelization by D.A. Stern. So that was kind of the first time I experienced the Jimmy Weeks subplot. I actually read the novelization, knew all the scenes before I saw the extended cut, and they do a different order in this novelization. I'd have to look into the scripts to see if this is due to the script, but in the movie, what we saw was Frank gets his tombstone, leaves it out on the golf course for Travolta to see, which is badass, then he reveals he's alive in front of the police chief and Jimmy, and then he goes off to go into how, goes in and gets the money and throws it out the window, Jack Nicholson Joker style, for everybody to see. In the
money.
Who do you trust?
Who do you trust?
One of my friends made a joke at one point where, there's that kind of off-putting moment because he's an old man, but when the old man's like, he's going to fuck your life up, is his only line. One of my friends joked, like, what if that was Stan Lee's cameo?
Oh my God. That would be amazing. He didn't have a cameo in this, did he?
No,
he did not.
Yeah, he didn't.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, I know. I feel like that would have been hilarious.
Yeah.
That's one of the guys that Punisher kills, like one of the mobsters. He's like, hey, whoa, true believer.
But yeah, in the novelization, the order is different, and it kind of makes a little bit more sense where Frank actually hits the bank. He hits all the money first. He hits that, and then that's why the press is outside the police being just like, what do you think about all this? And then around the same time that Frank shows up to reveal he's alive to the police and Jimmy, that's when Howard Saint sees the tombstone on the golf course. So I was like, you know what? That kind of makes a little bit more sense, where he surprises them that he's still alive when he hits them where it hurts with the money, and
that is cool. But can you imagine like the practical like level of that, where he's like he like actually goes out and puts that there and like places it and everything. They're doing like the security footage. No, he's like, all right, gotta put that ornately like right here so he sees it.
That, and like how he had to get his own fire hydrant at one point.
Oh yeah,
I was like, you kind of have to. It's probably not too out of the question for him that he got it somehow, but still.
Or like Batman and Dark Knight Rises, where like with the fiery symbol, where you don't have to think of the practicality of like, okay, it's like, all right, gotta make sure I put the oil right here.
Never mind all the cops were dying on the ice below. I gotta do this first.
Here. Oh, another guy fell in. Hold on, hurry up, come on here. It's like almost got it there, perfect. All right, it's gonna be so cool when I light this up.
Frank has got to sneak onto the golf course like before it even opens, and it's very open air too. In order to do
he poses as like a groundskeeper or something.
He's got like a fake mustache, and then he just peels it off after he leaves.
It's like Spy Kids with the uncle character, where he does like this.
First, I'm not the uncle. I'm not the uncle.
Yeah. I'm not the groundskeeper.
Amazing.
Where's that cut? Let's see that.
I'm sure they filmed it.
Call Rodriguez. I'm sure he has it.
Yeah, we got to make that. We've been making it in his backyard. There we go.
Yeah, we say, hey, Thomas Jane, we need you back, not for a sequel to Dirty Laundry, but to do a secret scene of how Frank got the tombstone on the golf course.
He's like, what? I told you not to call this number again.
Please, Tom, answer my calls.
Yeah.
All right, so we do get an additional scene with Frank catching up with Jimmy on a bench, where Jimmy tries to tell Frank to get out of town, and that's sort of where I'm like, does he tell him to save his own hide, or does he tell him because, he thinks that way Frank gets to stay alive and Jimmy gets to keep everything on the down low? Like, it's very, I like how ambiguous it is. And then Frank finds out through here, he notices that Jimmy has a different car, which makes him suspect that something's up. So that's a good moment. Because when I revisited this cut, I was under the impression that there were a lot more scenes between Frank and Jimmy between this, but I saw that like they moved this pretty well in terms of just like one scene for him to notice the car, and then the next scene is after killing Harry Heck, the Johnny Cash hitman guy. I love that guy. Frank meets with Jimmy again to tell him that he's leaving town, and that's when they do their handshake thing, and that's when Frank notices that Jimmy doesn't have his watch, which then leads Frank to decide to stay, blow up a boat, and ominously look at John Saint with a skull on. I guess he wanted to make sure that if he was going to kill John, it was going to be much later, because I was just like, you did have a vital opportunity here, Frank, but I get it. You want to wait till things are really bad.
Gotta wait till it's the most dramatic.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
There's a bit of a drama.
We're not going to talk about the reoccurring. Did you notice this, Ben? That Broken song was played like 3 times. I love that song, but it was played like 3 times during that movie. I was watching it. It's like the one scene where they're playing. It's like, all right, yeah, I love this song, Broken, Seether and Amy Lee.
Yeah,
but yeah, like they played it, and I was like, okay, cool. Like it's like when I think
she's stowing. Joan, I think
she's
Joan's
listening to it.
Yeah.
And then I think it's just gonna be a few minutes, and then it just keeps playing. After that, you're like, all right, yeah, I love this song. You got the CD.
I have the CD here, yeah.
Yeah, and then like I wait, and it's the last song they play in the credits at the end. I was like, all right, they must have. Well, they made it for what? They made it for the.
I think they made it for this movie. So this is a mini deep dive into the soundtrack stuff, but Seether did Broken as a solo years before The Punisher, which you could argue probably fits this movie a little better, considering that the way that it's done is like this big duet in the Amy Lee version. But I think the version with Amy Lee is done specifically for this movie, and I would not be surprised if a lot of it was due to Daredevil, like Bring Me to Life, Evanescence is hot, and then Amy Lee and Sean, the lead singer of Seether, I think were a couple during this time, and so Seether had done the song "Hang On" in Daredevil, which is what plays when Ben Affleck wakes up.
Yeah,
and part of me in my headcanon pictures Bruce Wayne in the DCEU also waking up to that song as he swings.
I love it though. Yeah. Like I love the kind of alternative music that like these kind of different ones. I haven't gone back to watch Ghost Rider. I doubt it has cool alternative music. I don't know. I could be wrong.
Yeah, no, it's not the same. But yeah, this one, Seether, I think because Seether and Evanescence were on both the Daredevil album, not just the album, but in the movie. I think they decided like, hey, that was such a big thing, at least for like record sales. Maybe not necessarily. I have to look at the box office numbers for Daredevil, but for at least the record sales or being Evanescence being hot, why don't we bring you guys on for the soundtrack? And then I think that's how that ended up happening. That is, I think it's still on Seether's Disclaimer 2 album, because I got their album afterwards because I became a Seether fan due to The Punisher and Daredevil, because it just seemed like that was the they were the inner voice of Matt Murdock in Daredevil. It felt when he was waking up. But yeah,
man, where's that in the Born Again and the Netflix stuff? They should bring that kind of stuff back, man. I do like on a kind of serious note. I know they do have like occasional music like songs and stuff, but I do miss the era of like having like popular songs and stuff in TV shows and everything like in the background, like punctuate like the end of like an episode or something. Like I do kind of miss. I feel like that's less of a thing now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
especially prime example right here. Smallville used to do that all the time, man.
Sure, yeah. And now they don't really have that with the shows as much. I mean, if anything, what they do is they bring in older songs and they bring them in. We got Nirvana in the Batman. We've got, I think, was it Radiohead that was in the finale of Born Again? I heard like there's something like that.
They have some other stuff, but like they, I won't spoil the newest episode of Daredevil Born Again, but they do have like speaking of like older songs, but like a Billy Joel, like New York State of Mind is like a song they use in like a recent episode.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think now it's just they license older songs as opposed to like, oh, we have a whole ass album made just for this movie with newer music. Sometimes it's not always newer music. Like,
Well,
you know,
sometimes it's like a tie-in. Like with the Smallville, a lot of the reason they did their music was because it would tie into this like Warner Brother like records and stuff.
Yeah.
Like it was like a cross promotion thing to be like, hey, it's also like our records. So like they're making money advertising their own songs and everything.
Yeah. Miss those days.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
So yeah, I have the album, and then I have the score, which again, Tim Bradstreet's version of Tom Jane.
That's so cool.
Yeah, love it.
I wish that he drew some of the. Did he ever draw any of the interior for the Punisher comics or just the covers?
I think
usually
he did for Max.
Okay.
There was a couple of issues, I think.
Gorgeous stuff, man.
Yeah. I really love Bradstreet.
No offense to Steve Dillon fans out there. He's just not. It's just not my thing.
But yeah, I really do love the Tim Bradstreet, Tom Jane illustrations.
Yeah,
they were really well done.
So good.
Yeah. But let's see. We get an additional flashback of Frank putting the pieces together, of thinking back to his handshake with Jimmy and how he had his watch before. When he was retired, and then what should they have done, Alex?
For the handshake, they should have done the
son of a bitch.
Yeah. He would have known instantly. Then he would have seen it.
What's the matter? Pushing too many pencils.
Pushing too many pencils. That's what we need. I keep telling you, man. For the next Punisher thing, they should get Arnold in there. There's no explanation or nothing.
As we talked about in the Patreon, they did consider like, hey, maybe we should do this for $89.
Come on,
he would have been way too expensive for the budget they
had.
Absolutely.
That's him, the saint. It's like, come on, do it. Come on,
I would say. But yeah, the part where he flashes back and then there's a knock at the door because he gets invited to the dinner at Jones. You can definitely see the change in video at that point because they're re-editing that part in. So that's there, and then we lead into what is the darkest scene of the extended cut for sure. Which again, there's this continuing thing that I thought was very interesting that Hensley does, where it's just like there's a parallel between Frank and Howard Saint throughout the first act, where it's just like, okay, Frank is celebrating with his family, Howard is mourning his son, like all this back and forth, and then so. The placement here is like right after Frank manipulates Howard into killing Quentin Glass. We have another parallel where like, hey, like best friend betrayal confrontation. Now it's Frank's turn as he goes and visits Jimmy. And I noticed Jimmy also, I don't know how much of this is product placement or them just saying, hey, they drank the same thing in the military. But I think you both noticed he also drinks wild turkey in this scene. Frank.
What a product placement, man! Like for that scene. Oh my god!
But Frank reveals he figured out it was Jimmy who gave him up when he sort of leaves the gun, and Jimmy takes the bait and tries to shoot him with it. Which again is you kind of know something's coming, and I think this is where Tom Jane is at his darkest, personally. I mean, obviously, he still kills a bunch of people after this, but this is where I think if there's any moment that feels a little bit more on the sociopathic side, it's this one. Even though, like, it is still very much rooted into more understandable stuff. It's not quite to the level that Alex and I have talked about with other versions, or like the Lundgren version, or any other stuff. But it's still very dark, where he basically forces him to basically commit suicide. As he pulls out his own gun. And I have to look at it into the script, but there's an additional line too in the novelization where Jimmy says, I'll say hi to Maria and Will for you. And Frank says, where you're going, I don't think so. And then that's the last.
That just shows you
exchange.
Like any kind of like I said earlier, where it's like, oh, maybe he'll work things out. That's the point where like, no, he completely takes a step over where he's done at that point. Like after that, it's over. There's no any kind of chance of him maybe not being Punisher goes away in that moment.
I've sometimes wondered too whether this would have worked as like taking place after he kills Travolta in some ways. But then I was kind of like, the only thing that kind of trips it up is like it does kind of feel a little redundant if right after Jimmy Weeks shoots himself, you then cut to Frank about to shoot himself the same exact way. Like it feels a little redundant that way.
Yeah.
But you know, this is such a big. It's a different emotion that you get compared to like, oh, he got the bad guy. You know, he got Howard Saint at the end. You know, it's a different feel to it. But I think this was such a powerful scene. I remember being so blown away by it in the novelization because of just the conflict and the shades of gray and just the level at which Frank has resorted to. I remember since we didn't have this extended cut, I actually this is pre-new verse. I shit you not. I read the scene to my friends and tried to reenact it to share with them just how like powerful this moment was. I don't think they quite understood what the hell I was doing, but that's just how much.
No. Now you hold the gun, and I'll do this character.
Now wait a minute. You know, you gotta say this specifically like this.
I ended up playing
in this tone.
Yeah, I ended up playing both Frank and Jimmy in that case.
Yeah.
But yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember specifically trying to do it based off of what was in the novelization, because that's just how much of a fan I was of this movie at the time, and the subplot that was here, and so I think that kind of just goes to show how much of an impact it had on me on this because of the fact, it's just so there's so many things going on with that.
Yeah.
You kind of end up feeling bad for like not bad necessarily, but like the way that the right hand man of
Quentin,
Saint, like that part where like he is killing him, and then like he's just like, why are you doing this? Like he's kind of just like he's like, don't do this. Like it's kind of a little bit like heartbreaking on his end. Like obviously you don't feel these are terrible people, but still just the way they play it is really interesting.
Right. Yeah. I think that Hensley was kind of really doing a balancing act, right? Of trying to add some humanity, but also making us hate these people enough to want to see them die anyway. It's just sort of like you want to make this, you want them to pay, but then the moment you see them pay, you're just like, ooh. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a cost. There's like a cost to things. And then you got stuff like the Russians. So, I mean, you know, like it's kind of like I did really enjoy that. But that was the kind of part where I was like, all right, cool. Apparently that was like really current at the time. Like those comics had just come out with like, and Punisher Max with the Russian and everything.
It was about 2000 or so with Local Frank. Yeah. Because that fight in particular, it's nearly beat for beat. In that comic, we'll go into that in a bit, but yeah, that's was very true. All right, like right down to the costuming, like Frank in a white shirt, like that's right out of the comics too.
It weirdly like it could almost take you out of the movie, but weirdly like they kind of thread the tone a little bit where like it still works. Like you could easily play that scene where like it takes you out and it feels like almost like it's a different movie or something, but like they play in a certain way where it's like, okay, like I can kind of buy this happening because it's already kind of heightened anyway, like the world that you're in, kind of like you said earlier.
Yeah, I think too there's like a level of intensity to it that's somewhat offset goofiness of the opera playing and the neighbors dancing around, and I think that's just credit to Tom Jane and Kevin Nash. In that
Go John Pignette, man, that comedian. Rest in peace, man. I loved his comedy specials.
Oh yeah, I forgot that you were a you knew him from the comedy stuff.
Yeah, he's so funny.
Nice. And then the rest of the movie kind of plays out pretty much the same way with him getting to Howard Saint. I really like the ending in terms of because there is kind of an argument like, oh, the neighbors they provide this comic relief that many people I think aren't really that. Some people aren't as much of a fan of, but I think it comes together in terms of it. Like I don't know, the ending might have just felt emptier if it was just like, oh, I'm not gonna kill myself. I'm just gonna be the Punisher, and that's it. Like the fact that he leaves
like his humanity, though.
Yeah. And then I really love just the monologue at the end that kind of just pans in towards him alone on the bridge. I like that it's quiet because on the score you actually hear on the track, the final track called "Call Me the Punisher," you actually hear what sounds like the music that was supposed to be there, where it's supposed to be like the big Punisher theme that comes up. And I'm like, like it has a different feeling. It has this more triumphant feeling. Whereas like there's a very morose, like very somber feeling to it. Like I like that the last thing we see isn't just him standing there with a coat, but also like he looks down, and then it comes to like it fades to black after he looks down, almost in like remembrance and sadness of his family, but also like what he has to do and what he's become. Like there's a level of like sadness and moroseness to that quiet ending that I really like, that I think makes it a little different than if it was just a triumphant music and like I call me the Punisher and then like cut the drowning pool and then like that's it, like but yeah, that I love that. And then the extended version has kind of a special credit sequence that happens afterwards where they use the Harry Heck song played by Mark Colley, In Time. I'm going to sing it at your funeral, but yeah, he does that song that's over that special credits before we get to Drowning Pool's step up in the regular credits. And then of course Broken, as Alex has brought up, because you got to play it for the third time. after
I was like, hey, I wasn't complaining, but I was like, they really got their money's worth out of the song, huh?
There's a bunch of other songs on here that did not make it into the movie, including another Seether song, but oh well. Oh man. Well, I think we'll take another break, and when we come back, we'll go over the comic stuff, the comic connections that I wanted to sort of bring up. So we'll see you then. Hey everyone, I wanted to share about my manga, Musashi and Son, the one that you heard about in the previous break. It is my take on the legendary samurai, the real-life samurai Miyamoto Musashi. I had the pleasure of discussing this at LA Comic-Con with fellow podcasters Jonathan London of Geekscape and Zach Schaefer of $2 Late Fee. You can check out the episode Geekscape Live at Comic-Con, LA Comic-Con 2025 for the full panel. But this is just a snippet where Zach of $2 Late Fee got to ask me about it, and we went more into it. So check it out. Thank you.
Can I ask Ben a question?
Yeah, of course. You guys are you guys are on the same network. Please,
so
you're friends.
I only see Ben. I see Christian maybe more than that, but Ben once a year. Ben has like 3 or 4 comics in front of us and a graphic novel trade looks like. And I looked through one. It's Musashi and Son.
Yeah.
And
I sold that at a panel.
Beautiful illustrations, but I just kind of went through the writing a little bit. It's really fantastic.
Ben's a really good writer.
Ben's got some cool stuff here. I'm kind of tripping out. But I look at Musashi and Son, and I'm like, James Liu would be a great lead in if there was a film version of this. Put some beard on him and put a long hair, for ponytail and whatnot. I think it would be pretty awesome. But I'm tripping over your stuff. It's so cool.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's been in the works for a while. I mean, the first time that Jonathan brought me onto the panel, I was like, I've got like issue 1 in the works, and now I got 3 of one series, and the other one is Musashi and Son, which is, we sold a copy of it earlier today at a panel because it catches your eye. Like the Ira is the name of the artist, and she does fantastic work, and she's also like really fast and does fantastic work, which is rare in the comics industry. So I owe her pages because she's a lot faster than I am in the writing, so I have to do it. But yeah, it's essentially based off the real life story of Miyamoto Musashi, who like is known for the Book of Five Rings and all these duels. But one thing that I found out about his life was that he adopted this one child that he found who was an orphan. The orphan was sharpening a sword, and he's asking, why are you sharpening the sword? And the kid says, well, my father died yesterday. I'm not strong enough or big enough, because he's like 10, to carry him up the hill to bury him. So I'm going to take the sword, I'm going to chop my father in half, and take it up in 2 trips. And Musashi says, how about you don't cut your father in half, I help you, but in return, I train you to be a warrior. And so he trains this boy to become a samurai himself. Flash forward many years later, they fight side by side together in a battle. We don't really know what happens in between. So this story is about how that came about.
Wait, hold up. Is this folklore? Or is this actually...
This is the folklore.
This is the legend as it's told, yeah?
This is the legend of Musashi.
This is a great story.
I'm going through, here are the details of that, where you have a child whose father is a fisherman, a farmer. He's someone who's been shown affection the way that we're used to. But Musashi, his only way to show that he cares is to teach a kid how to kill somebody.
Because right here in this panel room, Zach's son is sharpening a sword that was given to him by somebody on the Comic-Con floor. And we just need Zach to keel over. And we can see if
And then
Bodhi,
James Lou will come over.
We'll see if Bodhi wants. Hey, Bodhi, you want to split your dad in half? I ain't trading you to do nothing.
And if there would be a role for Steven Seagal in the film version, everything we've talked about would actually
Hey man, I'm all
synergize in
for.
one thing.
I think I loved working with James Lou. I'd love to work with James Lou again, but Steven Seagal and Bodhi.
As a minor character. We know James is the lead, but there has to be somebody Steven could be.
There are villains. There are villains.
Perfect.
Because the boy lost his father in my version.
He gets a
because
cake
Bandits
thrown at
killed
him and
his
he eats
father.
it.
And so Musashi's like, I'm going to train you to wipe them out.
So
and
a
get
Russian
revenge.
sympathizing bandit. See,
Ben,
we
where-
found a spot for
Where
Steven
can we get this
Seagal.
book? Where can we get your
you
book?
you can get it on Amazon, or if you're here, I mean, if you're interested, you can just buy it off of me. I have copies.
Yo, we
on
got
me.
20 minutes left in this con. What are you talking about?
And that is Musashi and Son. You can check it out in the Amazon link below under my author page. We have Volume 1, The Ring of Earth, that you heard me talk about, and then Volume 2, The Ring of Water, is releasing this year in 2026. You can get both off of Amazon. You can also get merch on our TeePublic that we list below under my name. You get all the superhero stuff you should know merch that I talked about earlier, but also Musashi and Son. So check that out. Thank you. We are back, and now we're going to talk about the comics and this movie and the different connections, because there's a lot more comics to draw off of compared to what was in the 89 movie, as we talked about in the script deep dive on that one. When Boaz Yakin was first writing the 1989 Punisher movie, it was around 1987 before Punisher had like a full-on comic series, and he had only really had, like, in terms of solo comics, a one-off issue here and there, and then a 4 or 5 part miniseries with Circle of Blood. It wasn't as fleshed out as it became, and as it was as of the writing of this movie. So the primary influences on this one were, of course, Welcome Back, Frank, and then the other one is Punisher Year One. So there's a lot of that in this one. There's obviously still some changes, of course. We still have Frank in law enforcement like in 1989, except this time he's an undercover agent for the FBI. We have another difference in terms of his children. In the comics, it was a son and daughter. In the 89 movie, it was 2 daughters. And then in this one, it's just 1 son, no daughter. And then, of course, Warzone, and I believe, both Warzone and Netflix Punisher end up doing both kids afterwards. The Saints, Quentin Glass, that entire mob are all created by Jonathan Hensley. Basically the mobsters who do kill the castles in the comics are completely different. The Costas. The main thing that I think is similar is the fact
they should have.
What have they?
Sorry,
Which they should.
I was just thinking about this. You know who because obviously they had Travolta play the mob boss in this. If they did the sequel, like we were kind of talking about with Jigsaw, I was thinking
Cage.
just the face-off connection.
Yes.
Yeah, they should have Cage play Jigsaw. That would have been amazing. Oh, you messed up my face. Oh.
It would have been different. It would have been different.
It would have been different for sure.
I would have watched that. That would have been the best Punisher movie. They should have made that.
I actually can really see that, even though, it is kind of, it's a cutesy connection with Face Off. You know who's also in Face Off? Tom Jane.
Oh wow,
Yes.
it's all connected.
Yeah. It's a very different role. If you go back to Face Off, Nicolas Cage, John Travolta pretending to be Nicolas Cage, or Nicolas Cage pretending to be John Travolta, however you see it. This is after Face Off. Off. Yeah. When he goes into prison, there's this nerdy guy in glasses with high-pitched voice, and it's Tom Jane being just like,
That's
"Oh,
the
you pass up
Punisher
the little
undercover.
people." He has that type of voice in it. So yeah, check that out.
Punisher undercover.
Being a much better actor than Frank you would think with Frank, but it's just kind of surreal to see that.
He has a battle car in this.
The what?
He has a battle car in this. He doesn't have a battle van, but he kind of has a battle car.
With the shield,
Yeah.
Something with Travolta that I kind of feel with this, because he, I do in general, I kind of like the Howard Saint character and how he ends up getting his comeuppance, but I also kind of feel I do kind of wonder how this movie would have gone with somebody who is a little different, who is a little bit more on the stern, intimidating side. Because I feel like Travolta as a villain works best when you go manic Face Off Travolta. That's to me if that was the type of energy that Howard Saint had in this movie, this would be very different. But also maybe a little closer to Travolta's strengths, I feel.
Yeah.
But, who knows with that.
Yeah.
But the main connection I see between the Saints and Costa is something that actually gets criticized a lot in this adaptation, which is the fact that it's not set in New York, it's in Florida. Now, apparently a lot of that was due to Travolta, I think is, don't quote me on that. I got to revisit. There's like this podcast with Tom Jane where he kind of pretty much said that was the reason that I remember. Where like, if you want Travolta in this movie, Travolta wants to do it in Florida because he's got something over there, or I don't know. A lot of it was because of that. And I guess it might have been cheaper too. I don't know. But to their credit,
we'll shoot it at Disney World.
We'll shoot it at Orlando. See I mean, it could happen, right? Because now Punisher is owned by Disney. You could, see Punisher.
Oh my God.
Punisher string somebody up in front of Epcot. At
There you go. Tower of Terror for real, right?
Let me tell you something, man. These kids at Epcot.
I'm already
Throw
drawing
someone
this.
off of Cinderella's castle.
I'm already drawing the sequences right now in my head.
You know what? I was joking. I want to see this movie now.
Punisher World. John Bernthal in Punisher World. It's Disney World, except he's hunting after mobsters.
There's like a terrorist attack or something, and Punisher has to go in.
Yeah. So, to their credit, though, back to what I was talking about.
Sorry.
In the original comic that revealed Frank's origin as the Punisher, accounts settled, accounts due. The villains all, like the Costa family who killed his family, they all retreat to their headquarters, which is in Florida in the comic. So there is a comic basis for the family who killed his family to be based in Florida.
That's why Travolta wanted to
Yeah,
do
of
it
course.
there. He's like, we got to keep it like the comics.
I'm sure that's exactly what was on his mind.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
He's secretly like a huge fan.
It's funny because Russell in the interview said that when he first met Travolta, he didn't recognize him at first because Travolta didn't have the hairpiece during it. And I'm just like, well, the Costa family in the comics, he's bald. Frank Costa is bald.
It's like Nick Cage with all of his hair pieces that he wears, man.
That's true, yeah. But Jigsaw needs to have hair. So, we'll see.
That would look weird. You're right.
Yeah. He maybe he would have headed to New York in the sequels that were not made.
Yeah.
We'll have to look into that. But yeah.
Come to New Verse, Nick Cage, Jigsaw, Punisher movie.
Ask Tim if he's down to do that. To play Nick Cage
for the big ride, baby. Something like that. I don't know.
It could really work, though. It could really work.
It could work. It could work.
Nicolas Cage would have taken the role too.
Oh, he would have
considering all the other shit
he's
he's been in.
How much in debt is he? Yeah, he'll take the role.
Let's see. We talked about one of the big influences being Welcome Back, Frank. So Garth Ennis, art by Alex's favorite artist, Steve Dillon, Jimmy Palmiotti, colors by Chris Sotomayor, and letters by Richard Starkings and Wes Abbott.
Rest in peace, Steve Dillon. Sorry.
But yeah, there's a lot here that we ended up seeing. So first off, the neighbors are all from Welcome Back, Frank.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, Joan, Bumpo, and Dave.
That mustache is really bad, man.
Are we glad that they didn't go over that mustache in the movie?
Yes.
Oh, my God.
I'm sure Pignette would have been would have objected. But yeah.
Dude, the piercings, like that scene still stuck with me from when I was a kid, man. When I watched that
was so good in terms of how they portrayed that, because on different levels. First, you got Ben Foster's like 2 years before he basically becomes twice the size as he is in this movie and becomes Angel in X-Men. You got both Mystique and Angel in the same apartment. They should have got Joe.
Oh shit, that's Angel. I didn't even recognize.
Yeah. Well, that's because Foster is he has range, right? So
it's almost unrecognizable.
Yeah. But it's good because it's so visceral visceral with the torture, and then
because you don't see much of it. Like you just see the
But you
one, and then
feel it,
beyond
yeah.
that, like everything else
Yeah.
is kind of left up to your imagination.
you feel it, right? And it lives up to
Yeah.
what they were saying about how Quentin Glass is a sadist, because you don't really quite get it until that
Yeah.
scene. Like it's
Yeah.
implied because he's a killer, but you don't really get to see him enjoy that, like putting somebody in pain until then, to the same extent. And then it just makes you prepared for him to get killed by Travolta. Glass getting killed by Travolta later on. So like they make him just unlikable enough right before killing him off that you're like, all right, like I'm down to see this guy pay. But yeah, obviously differences here. Joan does not look like Rebecca Romaine at all in the comic.
This
She's
one looks really sad.
yeah,
Like,
she's closer
yeah.
to like think Shelley Duvall in The Shining, like that type of
Yeah, I can see
that
it.
type of
Yeah.
yeah. That's kind of how I picture
I
that.
could see that too.
Yeah. And then he's not singing opera in the comic. Sometimes he gets stuck in doorways. I mean, the joke is, he's obese in the comic, but it does play a plot point in the comic that we didn't get in the movie, but it does play an important plot point later on. And then we've got Spacker Dave, as he's called in the comic. As you can see, it's even more intricate when it comes to his face in the comic.
Oh my god! Imagine him pulling on that. That'd be crazy.
I
That
know.
one that's like going from like his nose to his ear.
Yeah, well,
Ugh.
that's the comic. That's what happens in the comic. But
Nice.
I have not read this one. I have not found a copy of it. But apparently, in Punisher Warzone #1, Punisher quote unquote tortures a character named Mickey. In this case, his name is Mickey Fonduzzi as opposed to Mickey Duca. But in both versions, he claims to have a blowtorch when in reality he's using a popsicle on his back in order to get information from him. Because like when I did like it, but I was kind of like, is it too much of us pulling our punches when I thought about it? And then when I found out it was like this in the comic, I was like, all right, well then I guess Frank does do that. Let's see. This guy is from the comic, just very different. So I love this guy, Harry Heck, even though it is kind of a surreal scene with him just singing to him in here. But he's this Johnny Cash type hitman played by Mark Hawley is named Harry Heck, as it says on his
Well, it's
guitar
like
thing.
the director said, right, that he was trying to make like kind of like a westerny kind of thing. This is very much something
very
you could
Western,
easily see playing in like a western.
Yeah, he's more of a country western theme. The original Harry Heck Thornton is his name in the Welcome Back Frank. He shows up for like 2 pages in the comic. He has a cowboy theme, and I think the movie version is cooler. But like this guy, he's from Arkansas, whereas the movie version's from Memphis. But this one's from Arkansas, and apparently he's known for like he was in a shootout with the authorities, and the legend has it that he dodged a bullet, and Punisher's like, well, he dodged a bullet. He can't dodge 30, and he machine guns him. But yeah, the way that Harry Heck is killed is with a spring-loaded knife, which is also from Welcome Back Frank. This is shot for shot. There's just right down the composition. With that, obviously without the Punisher skull in this moment, but it's pretty much the same thing. Same thing with the front toward enemy mine that John finds. Now, obviously, this is a part of real Claymore mines, but that's been a lot of Punisher stuff, including Netflix Punisher, as Dan pulled up here, where it's on Curtis, the other successor to Jake Berkowitz, as Frank's other black best friend from before his family was killed. So we have a recurring theme here. Biggest influence, of course, is the fight with the Russian. So we have this moment here of, in both versions, Frank in a white shirt stabbing the Russian. And I had to verify this because so often some people make shit up in terms like, this was improvised, this is real, this is not real. Kevin Nash was actually stabbed by Tom Jane in this moment. I don't know if that was I have a feeling it is the shot that's in the movie, because it's just like, okay, well, if you actually have him getting stabbed, you should put that in because they fucked up on that. But essentially, it sounds like they had a real knife for close-ups that Tom Jane was using, and then somewhere along the way in the production, somebody fucked up and did not give Tom Jane the prop knife. And so when he stabs Kevin Nash in this moment, he actually is stabbing in his chest.
Yeah, look at his face.
And that's why he has that expression where he's just kind of like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Also, look at Tom Jane's face. Who's just like, I just stabbed Kevin Nash. Shit.
Yeah.
He's like, oh shit, what have I done?
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this is the real takes that they
Yeah.
did this on. So yeah,
I think so. Yeah.
It works in the movie, like honestly, but yeah,
It
like
does.
that's crazy.
Yeah. So a lot of the apartment fight is in the comic. There's some differences, but in both versions, again, Frank tries to stab him, doesn't work. The Russian uses a toilet over Frank's head, puts his head in the fridge, slams the door on him.
Reminds me of The Spirit, man. With the toilet. Where he bangs the toilet. Sam Jackson bangs the toilet over the Spirit's head. He's like, come on, toilets are always funny.
Yeah, we
We
didn't
gotta
have
cover
that.
Ben.
When we run out of material, but yes.
Yeah.
Main difference is the Russian has dialogue in the comic. He does not have dialogue in the movie. I don't know how much of that was a decision of it's more intimidating if he doesn't have dialogue, or if Kevin Nash felt that was the way to go, or if they didn't like Kevin Nash doing a Russian accent. I don't know. But he doesn't have dialogue in the movie. It does kind of feel very James Bond, Roger Moore.
Terminator-esque,
Well,
kinda.
to me, I see more Roger Moore versus Jaws in, Spy Who Loved Me and Moonraker type of thing. But it's kind of got a little bit of that James Bond feel to it.
A version of him showed up in the Deadpool and Wolverine movie,
Yeah,
right? Like that was kind of cool. Like they kind of brought that callback to it. It's kind of cool.
They should have made that guy look more like him though, because like they
didn't try with some of them.
They didn't even try. I was like, yeah, like you didn't have like. First off, you didn't have to do it, but if you're gonna do it, like have somebody.
Yeah,
with
the
a similar
shirt,
look.
man. What do you want?
Even Kevin Nash was just like, "What the hell?" Apparently, they interviewed Kevin Nash, like, "Hey, did you know the Russian was in Deadpool and Wolverine?" And he's like, "Yeah, that dude's not the Russian."
Oh, God.
Yeah, they could have asked him.
Yeah, I know, right? That would have been a really cool cameo, honestly. Because I also feel like when they say, "Hey, like they killed the Punisher in Deadpool and Wolverine," they're probably referring to the Tom Jane one. But because that's the era that they're working with. I'm like, they're probably not talking about Dolph Lundgren at that point.
No way.
No.
In both versions, Frank needs Bumpo's help to use heat against the Russian. In the movie, it's because he's boiling water and singing to opera, and in the comic, it's fresh hot pizza that Bumpo had just ordered. So he uses pizza.
Hey, call back to the '89.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, he actually uses pizza as a weapon in the comic.
I like it.
Perfect.
Yeah. In the movie, Punisher tackles Russian over the stairs, breaks his neck. In the comic, this is where Bumpo's weight comes into play. Frank uses Bumpo to suffocate the Russian. He just lies on top of Bumpo's lying on top of the Russian.
Oh my
Frank
God!
lies on top of Bumpo.
I forgot about that. I was laughing so hard.
Bill Ennis, man, like just at that would not have played in the movie.
No, it would not.
I
How
also
about
don't
taking
think
you out of the movie?
I don't think Peñette is big enough either for that to work.
No, he wasn't. No.
But then, apparently it does work, and the Russian's good for dead, because later on, the next time we see the Russian is when Frank is carrying the Russian's head and yelling at the mobster, asking, "Is this the best you've got?" So, is this all you've got? So, yeah.
Oh my God.
I love Welcome Back, Frank. But yeah, this then leads in the movie to Frank getting, kind of patched up by his neighbors, which also happens in Welcome Back, Frank. And then Dave gets tortured with his rings getting pulled out of his face, which you don't really see in close up in the comic, but that does happen in the comic as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Dave gets it rough in it, but he still survives in both versions and gets a happy ending. But this is where, when we get to the finale of the movie, we shift from the influence of Welcome Back, Frank, and into Punisher Year One. So this is a 4-part miniseries written by Dan Abnett and Andy Lanning, illustrated by Dale Inglesham, embellished by Scott Koblish, with artist Marie Javins, and letters by Bill Oakley.
Murray Javins.
Javins? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, very interesting comic because it's deliberately not, like, 3 out of the 4 issues, Frank is just recovering from what happened to his family. Like, you don't see him in action until the final issue. And when he does, and if you've read it like me after you've seen the movie, you're like, oh my God, they basically did this, where Frank, once again, writes out in a journal, or in the comics case, he has a recording, and he basically declares Frank Castle is dead. This is the declaration of war. Sic vis pacem parabellum. If you want peace, prepare for war. And dons the tactical vest with the skull painted on in white paint. And he also, in the comic, has the addition of black camouflage on his face, which this look we would definitely see in at least the Netflix Punisher season 1. So that carries over. And then let's see, other stuff that's in the comic too. Like in the comic, just begins with this horrific crime scene of just the aftermath of the castles getting shot to death. And when they find Frank and find out that Frank is still alive, he like goes on a rampage. And when he finally calms down, he says Maria before he passes out. Just like they have Tom Jane say Maria's name when he gets shot at the pier. And then they try to blow him up, and that just ends up helping him survive. Whoops. But yeah. Other things, the way that he attacks the mobsters party is definitely right out of year 1, with the champagne bottle that's attached to a mine that he sends up. That's from year 1. Punisher showing up and shooting up the party, also from year 1. And then the mobsters trying to leave, but the door is also rigged, also from year 1. So that's all from there. However, it is an original confrontation when it comes to how he takes out basically Howard Saint with the explosions with the cars. Some could say that the fire with the cars is inspired by the Crow and Daredevil, since they also had the whole like my symbol is in fire type of thing.
Yeah.
But that's not in Punisher year 1. It basically is just this mobster party that he attacks. And then Frank does attempt to commit suicide, which is also in Punisher year 1, though in the comic it happens way before he decides to become the Punisher and attack the party. So the order is a little different, but that's from there. And then Frank leaving the cash for the neighbors at the end, with Spacker Dave being all patched up. As you can see, he's got a lot more bandages in the comic because
he looks like a mummy.
Yeah, basically. He's Hush. That's the twist.
He's his new villain. That's Jigsaw.
Yeah. That does make sense, at least when it comes to the origin of his face, not necessarily in personality, but at least the origin of his face.
Hey, he'd have his face would be more fucked up than the Netflix version, right?
Definitely.
Yeah, absolutely. I wish they did that for the Netflix version, because it was like, this is kind of a cheat, guys. I know you're trying to make him look recognizable, the actor, but I'm like, you could have done more. You could have damaged his face a bit
deeper
more.
cuts or something. Like, I don't know.
Well, the way that they did it too definitely lended itself to be like, oh man, his face is fucked.
Yeah,
when he gets
glass in his face, like, deep in there.
Well, when Bernthal drags him across the mirror and he's like screaming, like they did that scene so well, and then to have that be the payoff in season 2, are you fucking kidding me?
God,
he's fine. He's got one scar, but he basically looks the same.
Oh yeah. That's probably the actor's insistence. Like, I don't want to wear a lot of prosthetics. I don't want to do it.
I'm not sitting in the makeup chair for 7 hours. Sorry.
No. It ain't gonna happen. It's just not gonna happen. Not gonna happen.
Not a trooper like Dominic West.
Oh, no.
Right?
No. That's when you know he's really a fan. That's when you know he's a fan.
Yeah.
Cannot wait to see it, man.
We'll talk about when we'll cover that.
Yeah.
But yeah, let us know, guys, in terms of Punisher coverage, because we have other stuff planned, but we do want to revisit like the original scripts to the 2004 one, the unmade sequels to this one that became Punisher Warzone, and then we do have a copy of the Punisher Warzone script that seems like it's a little different from the movie, at least in terms of like certain things that I've skimmed through. So let us know if you guys want to see more of that Punisher coverage. But yeah, that is what we have for this extended cut, at least for this discussion.
All right.
I'm glad that we got to do this over at CineFile Video. This place, like we've talked about in the past, we've had many different interview live events over there. They are the last independent movie rental store in Los Angeles, in the Sawtelle area, dedicated to physical media and enabling you to rent movies that you can't find on streaming. So you can rent both versions of Captain America 1990, including the Albert Pune cut. You can rent
both of them.
The 1994, both of them. Yeah, you can you can rent
both of them.
You can rent the 1994 Fantastic Four from there. Punisher 89. I don't think they have. I have to look. I don't think they have the work print cut of Punisher 89. that
I
Australian.
do though. I got the
But
Australian.
Alex,
yeah.
though, if you want to rent it from Alex, donate $1
It's
million.
not for sale.
Yeah.
Last time $1 million, big at $2 million.
Gotta go to the
Flashback.
sketchy Russian website to watch it.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then, I got to see Uchida Toma's Musashi movies as research for my Musashi and Son manga. So if you're in LA, you're a Superhero Stuff You Should fan, definitely visit the store, sign up to be a member. We typically promote some sort of charity or fundraiser here. So just like with all our other episodes of CineFile, this one, we're going to promote their sites. So, they have a donation site because of the fact that since they handle physical media, there's always a chance that this can get broken, get damaged, and they need some funds to help get a new copy or restore it in some way. So please donate over at cinephilevideo.com/donate. Or you can also, if you're not in LA, like a majority of our viewers and listeners, you can visit their online store, thecinevault.com, where you can buy physical media discs. You can use our discount code superhero15 to get 15% off and use their search function. I don't know. Actually, I haven't looked to see if they have the Punisher extended cut. I don't think they do, unfortunately. But they have Doctor Strangelove, so they have a bunch of other stuff on there. So very different stuff. But check it out, Cinevault, and get your discount code 15% off, Superhero15. In the meantime, big thanks to Leander Nicholson, my manager at Believeland, who is part of the live Superhero Stuff You Should Know crew. He helps out with these events. He helped me get in touch with Russell himself, as well as his agent, Andrew. And Andrew helped put us in contact with him throughout the whole way. And so because of Leander and Andrew's efforts, we were able to get Russell over to CineFile. And I was really grateful for that, considering that there's so much of Russell in the extended cut. And I was really researching to try to find, who's talked to this guy about the movie and his experience, considering that, big Punisher 2004 fans know about this extended cut. They know about Jimmy Weeks and him getting added in. Surely somebody's interviewed him. So
Jimmy the Rat.
Yeah, Jimmy the Rat. and I looked it up, and then the best I could find was some search results saying hey, if you want an interview with Russell Andrews about the Punisher, you should check out the CineFile event on April 2nd. I was like, that's me. That's my event. That's my interview. So I was really glad to be able to be that interview, because it doesn't seem like there is one on record. And so to be able to honor Russell in person and to watch the movie with him, he brought his family as well.
Nice. That's nice.
One of his friends is also a friend of the podcast, Heidi Cox, who I know through Jonathan London, her husband, who runs Geekscape, our podcast network. So I know Jonathan and Heidi every year through LA Comic-Con. Alex has met the both of them.
They're great.
Such a sweet couple. And Heidi definitely wanted to show up and support Russell as well. And they also played a role, I'm sure, in putting in a good word for us. So big thanks to them for attending, as well as other attendees. Yeet showed up as well. Yeet has been he was at the Punisher 89 one. He's been in a Punisher mode recently. He told me he hadn't read Welcome Back Frank yet, so I'm just like, oh man, you're in for a treat, especially after seeing this movie. So he showed up for this, as well as somebody Alex, Jacob Patrick, who you had on Flashbacks.
Nice. Yeah,
Jacob,
he was great.
Jacob, big surprise, because I didn't even know that he knew that this is going on, but he came very dressed up too. He came from an event beforehand, so he's all dressed up for our stuff. But yeah, I got to talk to him a little bit too. And then big thanks to the CineFile crew, the owner, Sebastian Matthews, marketing manager, James Trotter, was a trooper. He came literally to show up in the back to hold up his phone to film the camera tucked in the back for us to get that angle the entire time. So he was literally holding this up for us. So big thanks to James. He's the one who you can thank or blame, depending on what you think of that angle in the interview when you see it. And then
I'm sure it's great.
Greg Smith, who was basically the one in charge of screening this cut, which was my copy, my personal copy that I brought to the event. And Greg was great in setting everything up, making sure that we had everything we needed. And then Nick Hines, who helped us, he organized the development of this. Unfortunately, he was not able to join us for that night. I know he was really looking forward to it. Wanted to send my best to Nick on that. We definitely missed you on that event, but hopefully we can find another way to work together another time. But anyway, that is who I wanted to thank for this, and that is Superhero Stuff You Should Know. Big thanks to Dan for gathering the visuals for YouTube. Yep, Dan the man. He edits all these moments in. He helps put in, yeah. Thanks, Ian. Yeah, he helps put in all the little Alfie cameos that you see in here. So, big part of our podcast. So,
well, no Alfie this episode. It's
not
too
yet.
bad.
Not yet. He's sleeping right next to me. I'll grab him when you're talking, so we can get an Alfie cameo in here.
Gotta have it.
So I do admit I messed something up the last time on our Punisher script episode. I forgot to add a charity to our, so we're doing double this time. One is CineFile, and the other one is one that I wanted to include. Man, I wanted to include this last time. I feel bad that I was not able to do that, or I forgot to do that because of I know this person, or very briefly, but personally. So this is a GoFundMe. For those who aren't aware, my first published book was the Phantasm Compendium, which is a series of interviews with the cast of the Phantasm horror series. One of the mainstays of that series is Reggie Bannister, who played Reggie, the character, and he's such a sweet guy in person, really great guy to interview. And unfortunately, he is currently going through hospice care. So this GoFundMe is in the description as well as on screen at gofundme.com/f/support-Reggie-Bannisters-hospice-care. And anything that you can donate, especially if you're a fan of the horror series, please do. They have a goal of 70K. They're currently at, as of this recording, 60K or so they could use some help on that. And, especially if you're a fan of that series and of Reggie himself, definitely do that. I'm going to put in my donation soon. But yeah, that considering this is somebody whom I met very briefly, I wanted to make sure that we put that forward on this. Yeah. So that is for the charity drive. Please be a superhero and donate. Yeah. Let's go into the different plugs. So I'll start with Alex, and then we'll go into Ian, because I'm sure that you've got a bunch of other stuff, Ian, that we can talk about. But Alex, go ahead.
All right. So Ben mentioned flashbacks earlier. We should, depending on when this episode is released, we are ramping down with pretty soon we'll be done with season 2 of our rewatch. We're going to be finishing season 2 of The Flash soon. And then we're going to take a break for a month, kind of recharge, and then come back for season 3 of The Flash in our rewatch journey. So definitely, if you guys like the CW Flash, go check that out. I've been really proud of the podcast recently. I feel like we've really grown over this past year. And then if you also like rewatch stuff, my wife and her cousin do a Gilmore Girls rewatch podcast called Review More Girls, which is a lot of fun. They talk about like how that's a show about family. They talk about their family connections, and it's very fun, kind of more conversational rewatch podcast. And then my other podcast, Night of the Batman's just everything Batman related, that will in the future have more to say about that. And then What Means, same thing, have more to say about that in the future. But for right now, those are kind of on a little bit of temporary hiatus until I have a little bit more time. But anyway,
you've got this Punisher stuff occupying you.
Oh yeah, exactly. The Punisher. That's right.
Stuff you should know.
Yeah, Punisher.
All right, Ian, let's talk about your stuff at Triple Threat Comics.
Okay. As many who follow my channel, Triple Threat Comics YouTube channel, I've been working on issue 5 of my series, Codename Hunter. It's a sci-fi spy thriller. So picture James Bond meets Star Trek meets Star Wars with just a dash of Guardians of the Galaxy.
Nice.
We're kicking off later this summer for a Kickstarter. It's going to be all 5 issues. We're actually going to do it in a trade. So we're playing that right now. So I'm just a couple pages away from finishing up issue 5. So I gave it to my inker. So I'm going to be busy this summer.
Yeah.
So there's that. Then I do have to do a couple of fan comics. I'm doing Ben Affleck's The Batman. I'm doing issue 1 as an illustrator. I also written the stories. I have another artist doing issue 2, and his work is phenomenal. I can't wait to show that off. And I'm actually rejoining writer Eric Elliott, who I did with Batman Enigma. We're working on a sequel to that.
Yes.
I say that. And we got some surprises coming up. Eric's not right now working on the script. I'm very excited about the ideas he has, and I've definitely got ideas of my own. But I'm very excited to work on it. So that's probably gonna be released probably during the winter, 2026.
Nice.
So there's some stuff that's happening in that story that I can't wait to share when we are able to, of course.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Can't wait to put Tim to work for that motion comic, and then do and then of course return in any way that I can for that one as Keaton.
I got that Smallville thing I'm working on, man. That's during May. I'll be writing that Smallville audio drama and completing it. So
if you want an illustrator, please come and find me because I can illustrate for you.
Oh, dude, that'd be awesome. Actually,
yeah, absolutely. So let's talk. Let's talk at some point.
We're doing it briefly, just so I can talk about it real quick. So Lori Lemaris was never a thing they tackled in Smallville, like his kind of mermaid, like
they had everything else, but not Lori.
Yeah. His I'm kind of tackling it from like where the original comic did, the kind of the one that got away kind of thing, and that kind of like that love where like it could have gone somewhere. The love connection was really strong, but then circumstances or something came in that prevented them from staying together, and Clark kind of dealing with that kind of aspect of the having like a really strong connection with someone, but circumstances separating them basically.
Yeah.
So
Alex, let's definitely talk after that when we get a chance. This is just one last news I want to bring up. For New Verse Creative, obviously, Ben, you and I are working on stuff in the background. Obviously, that's going to take a back burner because we got both of our projects at this time.
we got other things to do.
So we're gonna obviously we'll get to that when we're available. But I did write a Superman 78 short for Tim, which I'm not sure when that's going to be for production. Probably next year. Because Tim's very busy, obviously, with editing all the stuff. Yeah. But this was just an idea that I had, it has connections to the multiverse, so I think it's going to be interesting to see where we go from there. That might lead to our adaptation of The Flash. I don't know yet, but maybe it will.
Ooh, nice.
Yeah,
nice.
So there's... Yeah, and also, guys, I do have a Patreon page. And I did put up a new episode of my reaction to the Fantastic Four 1994 animated series. I know for some I'm behind on doing Real Adventures of Johnny Quest and Starman. Things just got in my way. I try to record those.
The CG one, right? That's the one with the CG, right?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, the one from the 90s. Yeah, I kind of remember that a little bit.
Yeah, I never saw it, so I was like, let me just watch it. Let me just react to it.
Yeah. Nice.
So yeah.
Cool.
Lots in the pipeline for everybody. We all have our different writing projects. I know that Alex you've been working on the Smallville one for a while with really developing the heart of it. And I think you guys are in for a real treat on that because of everything that Alex has described to me. Really not only feels true to Smallville, but also feels true to what Smallville intended with just making you really making you feel for Clark and how it was like growing up, and how Superman had the same experience when it came to growing up and having lost love. So I think that's going to be really exciting when it comes together in the next couple of months. And then of course, Ian, your stuff I'm always looking forward to with I already have read through what you have for Ben Affleck's The Batman. So I'm really looking forward to that fan comic. And of course the New Verse audio version of that. And then it's great to hear that you guys are coming back to the Enigma universe as well. On that, we're definitely going to be very busy. I'm just that's another one where I'm going to have to record. And then of course,
come on, you love it. Come on,
I do.
Oh yeah. Come on, yeah, you love this stuff.
But yeah, no, I do love it, of course. And then the other thing that you and I are working on together that we did announce in the Enigma episode, and you have it in your background, I can see too, because the distinct yellow and green hardbacks there. Yes.
Yes.
Batman
Constant.
Resurrection. Yeah. We're basically co-writing that together. We're going back and forth. Neither of us have been working on it recently because we have other things going on.
No.
But we've been talking about, hey, like we should do this, and Resurrection will be presented as kind of a multi-episode series because it's such a big story, and similar thing with Batman Revolution. But the overall idea is to, these new verse ones that we're a part of will start sort of interconnecting or become more and more of a feeling of like an ongoing series, as opposed to just like, oh, like a little bit like a lot of the stuff that we've done in the past have been like, oh, let's do this unmade script or this earlier draft of this version. And I think where we've working with Tim, we've shifted towards an evolution of like, all right, here is the chronology that we've come up with, or like this is still adapting the novels, but there'll be some other stories or other elements that Ian will provide or I provide that kind of aren't in those stories specifically, that kind of we're gelling everything together. So I'm really looking forward to that process with you on that. So lots in the pipeline. That's before I get into my stuff. I just realized I have my stuff to talk about. Yeah. So let's go into Alter Ego issue 4 is out. Plus, on the right is Alex's cover of The Host.
Hey,
wrapping up the first chapter of the Alter Ego saga. If you read issue 3, someone knows what Jace is really up to, and so issue 4 addresses that. And I kind of noticed when I was rewatching The Punisher, this movie was very influential on Alter Ego since they both have vengeful characters. They both have a villain with the name Saint. And there's a plot point in issue 4 that when I watched The Punisher, I was like, oh, that's where I got it from. So
there's a Russian in it with the striped shirt that he fights at some point.
And Jace actually stabs him. Yeah.
Yeah.
That is issue 4. And then it's all going to come together in the trade paperback version I'm going to have put together that collects the first 4 issues, that tells the first chapter. And then afterwards, things will be in more graphic novel type form, more long form, similar to what I'm doing with Musashi and Son. So cool. all in the pipeline, and that doesn't even touch the Newverse stuff, but we'll save that for another time. I pretty much covered that when talking about my collaboration with Ian. But let's go into the comments. Since we just talked about comics. Comments. John Wells 5414. This is a compliment as well to you, Ian, since you're involved in it, and soon Alex will be part of the Newverse writing team. But the Newverse and Batfeed stuff is great. They're great to listen to before bed and on a long drive. I don't know about the Arkham tapes before bed. It seems a little...
Yeah, it's a little creepy. It's a little creepy.
Yeah, well, some people you never know. There's some people like those, what's it called, those serial killer documentaries and stuff, and they'll like watch that before bed and stuff like that. So you never know, man.
John, we're here to help if you need. No, thanks for being a fan, John, of our show as well as Newverse and the Batfeed stuff, and obviously there's going to be crossover in terms of the audience for that because we all work together on stuff, and so if you hear about us, you probably hear about the other. So thanks, John. Alex, I'm going to have you continue the tradition of reading.
Good old Ruben. What do you say this time? Okay. Cool deep dive on the original Punisher 89 script. And as always, thanks for the shout out. I was wondering if you guys would go over directors who almost directed Batman or Superman. Haven't we kind of done that in like the show's history before?
Maybe, yeah. Well, I don't think we've had a specific episode devoted to it. I think we might have been like, this director was offered Superman 78 at something like that, but I don't know if we've done a formal hey, these are all the different names. I think I had at one point I had read the other day they tried to get Michael Bay to do the next Henry Cavill Superman at one point.
No, absolutely not.
They shouldn't allow him to make movies anymore, man. His movies suck.
See, this is the type of discussion we would have in that episode. Mm-hmm. So, Ruben, maybe you're on to something.
Yeah. We should just go down the list and give our honest reactions. That would honestly be like the least amount of prep either one of us could do. Yeah, just do the Siskel and Ebert thumbs up, thumbs down.
I know Ruben also asked for an episode on the actors who were almost Joker as well, so that would be fun too. So I think there's a lot of potential for those two for sure.
Yeah,
but we're having so much fun with all these other like deeper dive type stuff. Sometimes I forget about the stuff that doesn't
Ruben,
require as much prep.
Ruben, who would you choose as a director for the next Batman or Superman? Sorry, I was trying to do the thing because I know in the past, like he's just been like, "Who would you guys choose for this?"
How about you, Ruben? Yeah.
Thing? Yeah, he's a good sport, and I like messing with Ruben a little bit.
Awesome. All right, we got Jared Presley. Jared leaves a lot of longer comments, and I'm not always able to get to them because a lot of times I try to prioritize the comments from the previous episode. So this time, the timing was right, Jared. So let's go with this. Great video and deep dive, guys. It's been many years since I've seen the 1989 Punisher movie, but it definitely has that late 80s vibe to it. I think we can all agree.
Yeah. Definitely.
There weren't too many.
I like it.
Yeah, there weren't too many Punisher solo comics before the film was made, as you both pointed out, but I don't think that was a huge issue. I mean, clearly not, right? We still enjoyed it. The Punisher isn't a colorful superhero like Spider-Man. He's always drawn more from the tradition of vigilante cinema. You can clearly feel the influence of movies like Death Wish and Dirty Harry throughout. It's interesting seeing the Punisher interpreted in this era, well before Garth Ennis redefined the character with Welcome Back, Frank. I think I have read somewhere that Garth Ennis, his favorite, in spite of the other stuff drawing from his own work, he might actually like the 89 one the best. But
I could really see like a Wolverine like 80s movie like working, like if it was him without the costume and everything, like just with the claws, like
do
I
that
could see
Japan
like
arc?
Oh yeah, that would be really cool actually.
Yes.
Like I could totally see like just like you know how they didn't really weren't crazy about like, you know, costumes. I could really see like an 80s like gritty kind of somewhat low budget movie where like he's just taking people apart with their claws, with his claws and everything. It'd be pretty cool.
Yeah. It says that run, and especially the Punisher Max line that followed, pushed the character into genuinely dark and brutal territory that I don't think we'll ever see on screen.
Especially not that Kingpin one I read by Jason Aaron, dude. That one was messed up.
I'll have to read that maybe by the Patreon.
Oh, yeah, Steve Dillon drew it too. Linking it all together.
See, Jared says, as for the film itself, I don't think it ever had a real chance to support a sequel. Better marketing would have helped, but what it really needed was a tighter script, a bigger budget, and the willingness to lean further into the violence and grit that define the character. Looking forward to your next video. I guess the one thing I object to is I don't know if it had issues leaning further into the violence. Am I wrong on that?
Yeah, they made him cut violence, if anything. Like with the
maybe, yeah. I mean, again, we're looking at this from a 2026 lens too, where like we've looked at Punisher Max, we know how brutal it can be, but then you look at like the 80s stuff or the Punisher stuff at that time, and like, yeah, Punisher was more brutal than Spider-Man for sure, but there wasn't like the level that we see later on. So it'd be kind of difficult, right? It'd be kind of difficult to have that. We have to be very much before its time. You know, I think even just having Punisher threaten the kid at the end was a lot for that time period. So yeah, I don't know if I really agree with how it needed more willingness to further into the violence, because I was like, I think it did. I don't think that was the issue. I think it did a fair amount of it. I know a lot of comic book fans would be less dismissive of it if he had the skull in it, but I do think that it is. it's definitely an underrated aspect of it is how much it gets Frank in terms of the like how far gone he is, as we've talked about. You know, and I think that's something that is that movie's strength.
I think Punisher is one of those where you can get away with, like, obviously, like, people want to see the skull and everything. But I feel like he's one of the ones where it's like, you don't really even necessarily always need that. Like, his whole thing is, like, he's just a killer, basically. Like, I could see other superheroes where, like, nah, that's a bigger deal, basically. But, like, with him, it's like, he's the same character. It's not like... I could see like people complaining if it's like a Batman movie, but it's like, oh, he doesn't ever wear the costume, but he calls himself Batman or something. Then like, all right, man. But like, you know, with this, I'm like, he has like the trench coat and stuff. Like, it's like you get the idea. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree with that, and also pointing out Tom Jane's not in the skull the entire time. You know, like that. And also, I feel like the skull comes out at the appropriate times in the movie. There wasn't really a point where like he should have had the skull on. If anything, I thought it was interesting that he showed up to Jimmy's place without the skull. Like Jimmy never actually sees him with the skull on in the movie. If you think about it, he's never in the skull when he's around Jimmy. I thought that was interesting. It was kind of just like, I'm here as Frank Castle, even though I'm doing Punisher shit. So I thought that was a cool aspect to it. And also, the Dirty Laundry short that, we'll probably talk a little bit more of in the Patreon, but he's not wearing the skull in that either.
Yeah.
The brutality.
There was I think I told you about this, Ben. I sent you a clip, but there's like a pretty good fan film with the Punisher where they do like a really good job of doing the jigsaw face and everything in that. Like it's actually pretty well done. It's older though too. That was the impressive part. It's like early 2000s. I remember seeing it like as like a kid, like watching. I think it's like 2008 or 9. They
Older
made it
and less budget.
Yeah. Crazy.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, Jared. Let's go into the Patreon patrons. So go ahead, Alex, in your either Stickley or meanwhile the Hall of Justice announcer or whoever you want, or maybe Moretti.
I don't know if I could do Moretti, but hold on. Punisher. No, I can't do it. Halsey D. I'll just do the normal thing. Halsey D. Corbin, Slight Rebellion off Madison, Choco Milk, Super Inframan, Derek Osborne, Jason Price, Cyber 6, Nick Gonzalez, Devin, Benjamin Vega, Tito G, Ben Lee Page, CDX Rolex, Michael Page, and Nolan Moore.
Thanks, guys, for your support. And thank you to our other supporters, Matt Herring, rest in peace, Leander Nicholson, who helped us at the event, Logan Wood, Newverse Media, Triple Threat Comics. Hey, we know that guy. He's here. The Bat Feed, Aaron Quinn, at Prof. E. Chicano Batman, Rob Ailing, Robert Schumann, Sparkageddon, Cookie Noms, Elijah B., Shamrock Balls, Ian H., Walter the Wobot, John Wells, we just addressed his comment, Rye Guy, Jackson Putnam, Tway N, at StageBat, at W.Media, Paul G, Sean Willits, Ruben A, we also know that guy, Yeet I,
Ruben.
who also was there at the CineFile event, Mine Kidzag, Cole Watkins, at Ye Old King _
Yodel
Creative
King.
Sparrow, not Yodel King, it's Ye Old King. Drew and Neil at 1995 Batman. We missed you there, Drew, at the event. And CineFile Video, of course, Tyler Sandifer and Evan Z. Join us at patreon.com/superheroSYSK. We will be doing a deeper dive into The Punisher 2004. There is an additional deleted scene that was shot, but not in the extended cut, that is on the theatrical DVD. So we can talk about that. The different cinematic influences on the movie, including the original Mad Max, as well as like the Sergio Leone spaghetti westerns. I just recently saw, this is the first time I've seen it. I can't believe it took me this long. Once Upon a Time in the West. My God.
Oh, I haven't seen that still.
Oh my
yeah, you
God.
should check it out. Yeah. That finale, dude. Oh yeah. I can see the
The
influence
original
for sure.
Mad Max is so different though from the other
Oh,
ones.
yeah.
It's like
It's-
way more grounded.
And weirdly very like modern day in feeling, because you're so used to like dystopia and everything, and then like he goes to his apartment and he's like, he has an apartment. Like what?
It's almost like it's in a different universe. Like each one feels like it's almost in a different universe, just because how different each, like the continuity is not a thing in those movies.
Yeah.
But like it's one of those where you see it and it's like this almost feels like it's like part of a different movie series, basically.
Yeah, for sure, and especially because like that backstory is like, if you know it, then you can kind of read into things in the other movies, but if you don't, it still plays out. Like it's not like a vital thing. But yeah, that was probably the most influential on the story. There's a few others that they cited too, but that was probably the most influential story wise. You definitely see a bit of the spaghetti western Leone stuff with like the close-ups, the western style shootouts. So that's in there. And then I'll go more into the prequel comic that came with the DVD, written by Garth Ennis, and has the Tim Bradstreet rendering Tom Jane.
Nice.
Also has Steve Dillon rendering Tom Jane. Sorry, Alex. Jimmy Weeks is in it too. But
Give me the rat.
Jimmy the Rat is in it for a thing or two. Maybe I should have shown. I don't know. I probably should have shown Mr. Russell. I don't know if he knew about this comic, but yeah. Anyway, that is what we'll have for the Patreon. So with that, we want you to do us a favor. We want you to tell all your friends about us.
Friends about us.
Who are we? I'm Ben Wan.
I'm Jimmy the Rat.
Probably not. And with us is...
I'm Batman. No, I'm Ian Miller. At Truth Comics.
Nice.
Thank you.
And with that, God's going to sit this one out. See you guys. We are Superhero Stuff You Should Know.
Punish you.